How do you learn who you really are? It's not found in books. It's found on the battlefield. All right. What's up, warriors? Welcome back, Battlefield of the Mind. I'm back with Chris O'Neill, and we're just talking my longest podcast that we've ever done, which I'm very proud of, by the way.
That's something. Yeah.
It is something. So, and like, your men's group is still going well, right? You still work with your men's group, like Dadding Daily?
Oh, yeah. What are you talking about, the podcast or the content? Because I have my Dad's Unfiltered podcast, which is same topics and stuff like that. But I do have my Dadding Daily TikTok account with the content, really. So yeah, there you go. They're both going really well. So thanks.
This is good. Yeah, I'm just happy to have you back. So we had 4 hours last time we hung out, which I loved. I'm like, that's my longest episode. And very exciting. Now, also, I'm going to be very transparent with you because this is exciting. Your wife is the only feminist that I have access to because I don't know any. None of them want to talk to me. I run men's groups. And so how weird is that? I know zero. I don't know any. You're the only one I can go to go, can you please explain what's going on that side? Because I don't know anybody there. And
literally
that's
no
helpful for me. I know none.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I am happy to be. I mentioned, I can't speak for everybody, but I could certainly shed some light and speak from my perspective for sure.
Very appreciated. Very appreciated. So I'm coming in today from a very middle point of view of I know nothing. I'm very Socratic today. I'm going to do the Socratic method of. Oh,
very nice.
But I know nothing. How does that go? And I'll tell you the big reason why it works that way is because I have a hard time watching any of the political stuff happening or any of the social things without being, how as any expert, all of a sudden everything is run through your filter. And so me as a human behavior studier, like I study human behavior, I can't stop going, look at this behavior. What is this behavior? This is a link to this. Most likely this is attributed to this. And not even to diagnose, but just to assess and like this behavior seems like this is happening here. There seems to be a control trigger here. There's some sort of control mechanism as far as judgments, ridicule to oppress here. Like I can't stop seeing the behaviors.
Sure.
And so I need someone like you to help translate what's going on here so that way I can just maybe use not completely my filter, but understand before I do any assessment of behavior. So there are some weird things going on right now, bud. Weird things.
It's interesting too, because it landed for me more potently than it ever has. The idea that truth is important, but perspective is what matters. Because literally speaking, even from a scientific perspective, none of us technically are seeing reality. We're seeing our skewed version of it through our filter and our perceptions and all that. And we can get close. And I kind of think it's like music. Music is the thing that allows one person to, the closest it could possibly be to feeling someone else's emotions. I think you can do that through music. I don't think it's exact, but it's as close as you can get. And I think that's the same thing. Like we can get close to each other's perspective, but it's very difficult to get exactly. And with that in mind, and obviously we're clearly talking about challenges, issues, politics, emotions around the election, and obviously it's a lot. So I will just first jump in and say that I wrote something when Trump was elected in 2016 because of how I saw my wife specifically, but generally other females and women in my life and people that I really care about and that I love have certain reactions that, to be quite honest, at the time, I didn't fully understand. I had many conversations, I had many interactions, and I educated myself because my experience was not giving me the same dread. And if you don't mind, it was just a post, a couple paragraphs. I'd like to read that. So after this was obviously the election on the 5th in 2016, and I ended up writing this on the 11th because it just seemed, I had so many guys talking about like, I don't get it, what's happening, and so many women severely upset. And after having that conversation, this is what came up for me. So I said, "Attention, gentlemen. You may have noticed that the women in your life have taken this election result seemingly harder than you understand. Not every woman has, but there is a large portion that can't seem to stop tearing up about the very mention of what happened, and I'd like you to understand why. Most would assume that it's a feminist issue. The first woman with a solid shot at the presidency didn't get in, and they're sad. Or it's bad loser syndrome. Or maybe they're not looking at the big picture. The pendulum swings both ways, after all. It'll be okay. Things won't be as bad as everyone seems to think, and what's done is done. So let's give them a chance and hope for the best instead of focusing on the negative. The problem is, guys, though they may not be feeling some of the guys are not feeling some of these things as well. None of these are the main reason why they're upset. Everyone has triggers, those things that they experience that leave a lasting emotional impression. Maybe you were bullied in high school. Maybe your father was a little too heavy-handed when you were a child. Maybe the first time you were emotionally involved in a relationship, the woman of your affections ripped your heart out and ate it. The point is, we all have these things in life that trigger us and make us feel less than. But you know, the one that we never have to worry about as men is being harassed on the regular by other men. We have never walked down the street afraid for our safety late at night when we see a group of guys on the corner and we're by ourselves. We've never had our ass slapped at work or our bra strap snapped by a sketchy uncle. We've never had to wonder if we didn't get the job because of our sex. And we've never had to feel like others wouldn't believe us if a friend, a family member, or even a total stranger did something inappropriate to us. Our ladies aren't upset because there's a Republican moving into the White House. They're not crying because a woman lost. Our mothers, sisters, wives, aunts, grandmothers, and friends are upset because the personification of every catcalling, groping, ass-slapping, his word against hers, why don't you smile more misogynistic man that they'd ever have to deal with in their life was just elected president. Politics aside, please be considerate and allow our ladies to grieve for that fact. Be their support. Listen to them without trying to fix it, because you can't. Simply love them and acknowledge what they're going through. Things will evolve over time, of course. We will get to see if this man can do the job he was elected to do. I myself am hoping for the best. I want to focus on unity, positivity, love, and collaboration. And I know that's what most of us all want. But in order to move on from the emotion of the current or any situation, it has to be felt. Be the change you want to see in the world, gentlemen, and hug the women in your life so that they know you understand. Much love, everyone. And that was the post.
Okay, so you can translate for me. What is the the message or purpose on this? Is it that like this guy in their mind represents somebody who's going to get them or somebody who did?
Well, it's the perpetuation of the mentality that allows for those things. So, and I would assume you'd acknowledge this as well. Because I view, regardless of your opinion about it, Trump as a human being versus him as a politician and all of that, he didn't cause all of this chaos. He's simply a result of it. There's a reason why he was able to get to where he is, and because if he didn't have support, it wouldn't have happened. It doesn't matter who he is and how he speaks and what his rhetoric is. So it's the idea that someone who has been accused of by, I think it's 27 women, of inappropriate conduct has been not just accused, but why can't I think of the word? I'm at a loss here. It was proven in court that this happened, and he was pronounced guilty. The point, I don't know why I can't think of the damn word. He was tried in court for sexual misconduct, and he was found guilty. That's the point, right? So someone who has been proven to be this type of person who inspires certain groups of men who have a similar mentality to feel emboldened to continue to act out this way, and not just do it, but do it, feel free to do it now with less ridicule.
So
was elected to the highest office.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, so he did that recently, and he's promoting that guys go out and do some sort of harassing sexually in some way, it's promoted to go get women, now you can go do that. And
no, and obviously
women should be oh shit, we're victims now.
No, and obviously he's not literally saying go harass women. It's the idea that
I do want to make sure I don't mess it up. I want to make sure, like,
for sure. So
I don't want to add something to it. I want to make sure that I'm correct, like on the assessment of like this guy. I don't know how long ago it was that something like that happened, but like again, this guy, just from me understanding, even rock stars or millionaires or famous people or movie stars, like these people are wrapped into some Diddy party crazy shit. So I don't know what the hell some of these people are plugged into. I'm just saying.
Sure.
And so like if I go like, 20 years ago they did a thing, I'm like, these are rock stars. I don't know what to do with that, you know.
And that's a fair.
Motley Crue should be murdered. I don't know. Like,
no, and that's fair enough from that perspective. The difference is he now has influence over their rights.
Good. Now this is where I want to make sure like I don't misunderstand at all. So now that he's in office, is he calling for like guys catcalling inspired? Guys, go and snap some bras, go slap some asses. It's time to go get those ladies. Because like if there was a call to action, I will admit I didn't get the email.
Yeah, and
so I missed like the go get the girls. I missed go get them. I didn't see it, so I may have missed that one.
Once again, to not have to specifically come out and say go and do this. It's I live this way. I have been able to not have seemingly a lot of consequence for my actions here. And then I go about degrading that person even more after the fact. Like the woman he was accused of sexual misconduct, just the one, never mind the 27 others, was told by multiple judges that he will be held in contempt if he continues to bash the woman post-trial. And he just kept doing it. So it's basically, I don't have to, saying verbatim, men should go and do this, is unnecessary. It's, I'm going to act this way and be proud of the fact that I wasn't held accountable and be more emboldened to say I could do whatever the hell I want. And this person is now the highest office of the land. It's not that they're some, superstar celebrity that we can separate from our daily lives. It's just entertainment. And he was that in The Apprentice. But this is real life now in the sense of it affects law and what people are allowed to do in their lives. And the fact that so many women already feel unsafe just walking down the street. Now there are less social barriers. Go ahead.
But this part right here, this is the part where I want to make sure that I need to like catch the danger, because as a protector, I also want to go like, oh shoot, the danger. Like, where do we get involved? I'm like, wait, I got to make sure there's danger, because like if I'm walking around my house ready to stop an intruder, but there's nobody here, what am I on guard for? I got to make sure there's an intruder. So we got to catch him first. So you said there's laws and stuff. You said now there's laws in place. I train men, and I know that you talk to men. You train men too, right?
Yeah,
my guys are trained to be nonconformist. Okay, no, and we can. I would love to do like the differences too, because it's probably good to promote like your side or my side, to say like, hey, pick your side, because it's useful for both. In which case, though, I promote my guys to be nonconformist, which means like every noise that somebody makes, you don't have to join in or do anything.
Sure.
Like, go the path that feels genuine, authentic, correct on what you believe is what is right, not who is right. And so I can't imagine any of my guys, if somebody said, let's go and harass girls and women, that my guys would go, oh, I guess that's what we have to do. I guess I have to go do some harassing today. Like, I don't know. My guys would be the ones who go, we don't do that shit. I'm not doing that. And so this is where I'm trying to understand, like, which men would be the ones who, without it being said, subconsciously, without it being known, because somebody did something that I have to go do something, and it's a law, but it's not said, is where I'm a little confused.
And I lost you a little there too. where are these men
Okay.
who might be doing this getting this idea that it's okay? Is that what you're asking?
I haven't seen because there's not really a call to action. There's no here's what we need to do. I don't remember any law that says now we can go do this. And I'm very okay with what should we be holding any politician over the fire for doing what I believe is non-integrity things. I love that idea because, man, this last one, we should have done some shit. So I'm trying to go I'm with you, but I got to catch the bad guy first. What's happening? Is there if there is a call that we have to go and stop the grope crew or the bra snapping committee, I'm with you. We can make a non-snapping gangster crew. We can do that. So I just need to know what's the call that's happening.
Okay, here's the call. So
that way we can make sure the girls aren't getting attacked.
Here's the call. And I appreciate your desire to stand in that traditional provider and protector mentality and to help and to train other men to get out of their own way so that they can do those things too.
I got 5 girls in this house.
Yeah, I get it.
I'm a girl dad. I got 5 girls here, and I could take all of them at once, and so it's not even close.
And I
got to make sure my girls are behind me, not versus me.
Well, and the difference here is that a friend of mine said, "I'm tired of men getting together and discussing my rights." And so my call to action is this is not our time to step up for ourselves to protect the ones that we love. This is our time to sit and listen and allow them to tell us their experience. Women specifically.
Which rights that way? So I want to make sure because I got to know what rights women don't have that men are saying we have this right, but women don't have that right. Or vice versa.
Well, specifically, and we obviously got into the topic of abortion last time. I would like to touch on that this time at some point.
I do remember.
And I will freely admit I was not in a good place to lay down the support behind my views. I just wasn't prepared for the conversation, and I want to have a more elaborate version this time for that reason. But so the point being,
okay,
you know Nick Fuentes, yeah? You aware of him?
I don't know him.
Okay.
I don't know him. No.
Nick Fuentes is a far right, basically self-proclaimed misogynist. He owns that shit and loves it. And basically,
I don't know who that is at all. Yeah.
He coined. You can look him up at your leisure, but he coined the phrase "your body, my choice," because of the first Trump helping to remove Roe v. Wade, and then him getting reelected this time. That was Nick Fuentes' call to action, was "your body, my choice." And then I had multiple women friends.
This is a young guy, right? This is a super young guy, right? I'm trying to look it up right now because I'm who is this guy? I don't know who it is. Okay, and he said, "Your body, my choice." That's what he said.
Yeah, and basically proud of the fact that and there have been.
I think I'm losing.
You're losing me.
I lost your signal. Yeah, I lost you just for a second. I didn't hear that sentence.
Okay. There have been multiple women that I know personally who have received talking points like that, haha, Trump's in office now. We're just going to own you. We're going to destroy you. We can control everything you do. And so that's what I'm talking about is the feeling emboldened.
Silly thing. That's not going to.
Well, of course. And that's the thing too. It's the very real part of this is, I think it was Abraham Hicks. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I know Abraham Hicks. Yeah.
So there was a moment where they were talking about if you're sitting on a bench and there's a bush behind you and it's nighttime and there's a rustle in the bushes and you're afraid, irrationally, there's not a monster in the bushes. It's probably a squirrel, but you're still afraid and you have that visceral sensation. So you feel a need to run. So just run. It's not. If you feel an urge to do that, just because it's not really there, you're honoring your experience. Granted, you can also stand up, turn around, and face it, and that's your prerogative as well. But the point is, like, just because the thing that is creating the experience isn't necessarily exactly what you think it is, doesn't mean the experience itself shouldn't be acknowledged and worked through and honored and, you know, all of that. And I appreciated that point. And I think
like the concept of fear, right? So the concept of fear, and I train on fear, I write on fear, like I have books on fear. And so with this, like, you know, to say like, hey, there's a noise in a bush, run away and don't even consider what it is. Well, there's the 2 points of view. You're either like, hey, what is it? Or I don't care, I'm out of here. Now, who do you want to be the one who's in charge? The one who's like, I'll take care of it, let's see what it is. Or the one who's like, I don't even look, I just took off.
Well, yeah, and that's not. Who
would you want to be like, this is the one who like is going to make sure that we're okay? I just want to make sure first, because like I don't want to misinterpret these ideas or analogies as something different, because if rights are being taken away, and this is a 26-year-old kid, so I mean, like, I'm just saying, if he was like, I don't like it and I'm doing it my way, and he wants to hurt somebody, it's probably not going to happen. And so this is where I'm like, you can say whatever you want, but that's not a real thing, dude. And so it's just that kind of stuff where like, this is still America. This kid doesn't get to just win. Like, it doesn't work like that. And so there's going to be like representative, not we work for him, he works for us. There is still that. No matter what the politician's supposed to be, there's still more of us than that one person. There just is. And it doesn't have to be a violent thing. It's just a disagreement thing, you know? And so it doesn't work like that.
This is where, like,
thing? As a leader, I mean, if he's like, I want to do a thing, and we just go like, we're not doing that. Like, we have to comply. You do know that, right? People have to comply.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so, like, that's what they were just seeing through this last thing, is there were things that were just wrong to do. And so there's a lot of non-compliance, especially in the police force. I have a lot of police officers. And they were like, we're not doing that. That's wrong to do. It goes against the oaths I swore. Just because you're a politician doesn't mean I'm breaking my oath to protect people. I'm not doing that.
And good on them.
And so I know police officers that were like, no. And that's what I mean, is like, there still has to be a form of compliance to do things, where there has to be a line of like, what is right, not who is right. And that's the narrative that I try to like stay like, well, what's the behavior here? Would you like to be on the receiving end of your own behavior? And if the answer is no, then it's probably not good behavior. That's just baseline. That's not even me getting into like any layers. That's just the first layer, is like, would you like to receive the way you're treating people?
If you're speaking generally, then yeah, of course.
Then probably not a good path.
Well,
with this kid, let me understand that, like, because I just want to make sure, like, what this is, because the Wikipedia stuff and things like this, I know this is propaganda. Like, I know that. I know
what
when people can just write their own shit, like Wikipedia and stuff like this.
As
people
a platform,
just
you mean?
Add whatever they want whenever they want. Yeah, it's open for people to just put whatever they feel like it. So I know it's not credible, and so I got to go off of like, well, what's really going on here? Because I'm just saying, like, which rights exactly are going in what way, so I can make sure I'm like, I look what's in the bushes. Like, if there's something, I'm with my girls and there's a rustle in the bushes, I'm the one who goes like, well, I got it, girls. What's in the bushes here?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's usually a squirrel, but if it's a cookie monster, I'll give it a cookie. Like, I'll figure out what it is. So I'm the warrior who goes towards the noise. I got to make sure that whatever this is, it's got to get through me first. That's me.
Yeah.
In which case, I would be in charge of the house, because I'm the one who makes sure the noise is investigated. I can't send my 14-year-old. She's not qualified. Okay. And so this is where, like, well, let me go toward the noise. What is the noise, and what's actually happening versus what I'm afraid of happening? Because fear isn't real. It's a possible future that doesn't exist. But what is real, so that way I can make an educated decision on how to handle it. So what is he actually doing that I have to be like, I don't comply, or like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. Like, what's the thing? I want to be with you. I just don't know what it is.
I want to be with you too, and I'm trying to.
I don't know what's the real problem. Like, I want to be with you, but I don't know what the actual problem is. Just hypothetical problem.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Warrior, thank you so much for being a part of the information that we have, and you're part of our story as we are a part of yours. It's very much an honor to be able to connect with each other. If you want to know more or you want to get started with working with me or working with our warriors so that you can begin your path to authenticity, strength, leadership, and accountability, this is the way. Together, we are way stronger. Now you get to choose. Do you go forward or keep doing what you've always done? If you stay where you're at, hey, click on some of the stuff and follow what it is. We got motivational stuff. We've got podcasts. We got more things. Just subscribe and do the stuff and we'll keep you updated. But if you want to start going in, start jumping into what our programs offer and start your journey and being the hero in your own story.
So, are we still talking about women being afraid in this current situation because of things like that? Yes?
But if we're afraid, again, I want to know of what. Like, 'cause I want to be with you. If I'm going to be scared too,
sure,
I got to know what it is.
It's the fear that what is already happening will escalate. Because it has. It has in the past. So think of it like...
To what? So I can be... To what, though? I want to make sure, like, what I'm scared of.
Well, and again,
like, remember,
you're probably not
I know nothing. Like, so don't assume I know. But that's why I said I want to assume I know nothing, so that way it's not an assumption of me, like, knowing what you know.
Well,
then if I'm like, he's going to do something, what is he going to do? So that I'm not... So I can be like, oh, shoot, that's bad.
Well, you are familiar with the experience of many, many women who walk down the street and they get catcalled and all, just have that experience. Yes? Or no?
Well, I mean, like, I know of, like I said, I have 3 teenage daughters.
Right. So I'm assuming they've experienced that before. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it hasn't been traumatizing to them.
Well, we're not talking about traumatizing.
They're beautiful girls. And so, the boys are always, I don't know, they go to a small school, so a lot of boys like them. I'm assuming they do. They've had some really inappropriate stuff sent their way, and we've handled it together as a family.
Okay.
And so, like, there's been some very inappropriate stuff way above catcalling, and we handled that shit too. So,
there we go.
Yeah, that's happened. Is this guy going to go get my daughters, and I have to kick this guy's ass? Like, I want to make sure, like, whatever the thing is, what is it? So I got to help you get them. Like, I want to be on your team, but I don't know who we're fighting yet.
Okay, so let's move it up to the bodily autonomy issue, because that's ultimately where the issue is. If you're not understanding the general fear of just the big thing with the, you're familiar with the all men hashtag. I don't remember if we talked about this last time.
No, I never heard of that.
Okay, I do find it strange that you have that many daughters and you don't know about these things. So
remember, I'm being Socratic with you today, Chris. I need to act as I know nothing, so that way I can understand without bias.
Okay, fair enough. So the all men hashtag basically stemmed from the idea that, and I posted about this a while ago, and I used the analogy that because so many men are taking offense to this and saying, well, I'm not that type of guy, so why are you assuming I am? And it's not okay for you to assume horrible things about me until you get to know me. And the argument there is, if it was just like, oh, well, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to assume you're a piece of shit human being until I get to know you. But there's a difference between thinking someone is a horrible human being versus being concerned with your own safety because of potential experience, because of past experience. And the concern
those are different. Yes,
right.
Those are different things.
And this is the clarity that I want to provide, because the analogy I used was like, is every person that a police officer stops a bad criminal that's probably going to take out a gun and try to shoot him? No, of course not. But they have to act as if they are until they understand and they get the information necessary to prove they're not, because they're in that position of authority and need to assess because they don't know. So I'm okay.
So the concern then is to go in as though it's guilty until proven innocent for protection purposes.
I wouldn't say guilty until proven innocent. I would say cautious until caution is not necessary. So because it's not about the character of the person.
Right. So I'm going to assume I will assume the worst until I can assess you're not what I judge you to be bad.
Yeah. See, and even that.
So that way I can protect myself against the potential bad.
And
because like you could pull a gun on me and I have to assume you're going to pull a gun, but I don't want to get shot. So I got to assume gun until I go, you're not going to pull a gun. So I got to assume the worst until you're like, see, I'm not the worst. And then I'm like, okay, you're cool.
I don't want to go back and forth with semantics the whole time, but in essence, yes, assuming danger.
No, I'm asking to understand.
Okay.
Assuming, like I really am not messing with you. I'm really
assuming danger until there's proof there is none. That I would say is a better way to say it.
And so, okay, so if I assume danger, and I listen, I work in belief systems. So remember, I go into behavior. If I have rose-colored glasses on, like everything starts changing. All the red is different. Everything is different. And so if I have a filter on of panic or fear or terror or racism or sexism or hatred or anything, if I have a filter on of trauma or abuse or abandonment, if I have any filters on my belief system and I assess the world based on a wound, an insecurity, a fear, or judgment, I am going to have, like you said at the beginning, truth or perspective. I'm going to have a perspective that's automatically skewed because we can, with our belief systems, create narratives that don't exist and spaces that doesn't exist there because I've added it. And so I could say just by looking at you, I can just use any filter and then just add in like this guy has bad intention because I looked at him. And I believe that guys who look like you have bad intentions. So no matter what you're saying, I'm on guard with you because you look like somebody who I knew who had bad intentions.
Well, sure.
And it's only fair for you to go like, I don't even know that guy. Who are you talking about?
And if you're going to view it that way, and this is another reason I wanted to try to bring some clarity, because that's not what I'm saying. Because you're looking at a superficial thing, like, well, that guy looks like a criminal, or like Trump has said it before. Well, that person doesn't look Native American. Like, how does a Native American look? Like, so, they're not wearing a certain clothing, or they have a specific view in the eyes. They have a certain shaped beard. Yeah, of course, you're going to view superficial things like that and judge a person completely.
I really appreciate that point of view where like, well, how can I judge what a person is based on a look? Like, I appreciate that very much because that really eliminates a lot of arguments today.
Well, and that's not
that would mean
the
like
same
we
thing
can
as,
remove any subjective point of view.
Sorry, say again. You can remove what?
Like, as far as the filters go, we would remove a lot of subjective point of views or subjective judgments if I said, well, you look like, and because you look like, and my assessment of you is, then you must be. We can eliminate a ton of those based on that. What's a Native American look like? Well, what does a human look like? Well, we could just say human and stop calling it like all these different things to make us hate each other for how we were born. That'd be really cool.
That would be really cool. And I think it's a fine line between
I like that.
Between acknowledging someone's differentness and judging them for it, or lumping them into a group because of it.
Well, one is objective, one is subjective. One would require judgment. The other one would just be like observational.
Sure.
And so there is a difference. And I think people also mistake on like a stereotype for racism because one is profiling and one is hatred. So they're not the same.
Sure. But the potential hurt from both of those things still exists.
Again, we're on potential though. Something that's not happening. That's kind of where I get mixed up because like, even me, like I still have to lead this into like something relatable for me. As a protector, if I'm prepared for something bad, I don't stress about it. But if I have to stress about something that doesn't exist in my house or in my world, I don't understand why I should be at a heightened level of panic if the thing isn't happening. And that's why I'm a little like, well, can we be prepared and then do a thing? Or do I have to be in a panic mindset without it actually being real?
Okay.
This is why my guys wouldn't be conforming to that. I don't understand.
And once again, good.
I want to. I don't know why I would be scared of something that doesn't exist.
Well, and it's not, you're not. and it's not you.
Right.
So I'll give you an example.
I still need to know what the thing is that exists so I can be, I want to protect with you. I do. I want to be on your team. I just got to know what the bad guy is so I can be on your team. I don't know what it is.
All right. Should we go back to the bodily autonomy thing then? Maybe I could get some clarity there.
Let's try and keep it let's try and keep it like really simple on what the thing is without like an example. Like just go like this thing right here. They want to make women do that thing. And I'm like, oh, that's the thing they're going to make them do. Like, I just want to know what the problem is before I look into a kid like Nick Fuentes or some shit. I'm like, what are they doing?
Well,
like, I want to make sure if one of my girls is under assault, I got to make sure, watch out for that attack.
Let's simplify it as much as possible. What are they doing?
Is there a right that my daughter just lost?
So regardless of rights, regardless of politics, any of that, do you, as a human being, not even as a man, do you as a human being value women? Do you value men? You value human people, right?
Yes.
You want to see them do well.
Yeah, I do. I value human life. Yeah.
Okay. You want to see them do well. You don't want to see people suffer. And you want
for the most part, I want good people to remember.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some people you want to see suffer.
Okay with justice
I get that.
Well, not suffer. Remember, tragedy is based on good and bad, and so bad things happen to good people is tragedy. Bad things happen to bad people is justice, right? That's how storytelling goes.
So, that being the case, if there was, and I'm trying not to use the whole group identity aspect of things.
We're using questions. I still would like, and this is just make it simple for us. If it was like they're gonna make women do this from now on, like that would be a problem. Where women aren't allowed to wear shirts anymore, so we can catcall them. Like that would be a problem. Or if they're like rape is now legal, that would be a problem. I'm like, okay, well those are bad. Like we got to stop those ones because that would be an actual thing to stop. So this is where I'm like, well, what would be the thing to stop? Are they going to make our girls no longer wear shoes? And now all of the foot fetish guys have free reign at toes? Like, I don't know what it is that I'm worried about, but I want to know what's the thing that has nothing to do with the question or my opinion or a story or anything. Like, what is it that you and I are teaming up on? So I can lock shields with you and we can protect our families. What is it?
And now I'm...
Because I want to protect them with you. I want to be next to you. And go like, that thing right there needs to stop.
And I'm trying to come up with a way to say this to answer your question. Because I thought I've said multiple things that make sense. But there's something that's you're missing and that I'm not saying. So
I haven't heard like the right yet that's been taken away. I haven't heard the attack that's actually happening to make sure my girls are safe. I still have only heard stories or examples or hypotheticals, but I haven't heard.
I told you
they're taking
autonomy.
this right away from them.
Bodily autonomy is a right that has been taken away.
So which right? Which right? So I can make sure, like they.
The specific
right, so I can make sure that one.
I can make a choice about my health care as a woman and as a mother, versus I can't.
Okay, cool.
That's one.
Which thing? Because if they're like, I wanted, so they're like, I want to get an elective surgery, or I want to, remove a wart. Like, what is the part where she can't do that? I want to go and do what? So I want to make sure specifically I do not goof this up.
Well, then we have to get to the abortion thing, because if it's reproductive health care is the phrase. And I had someone I know who skews the other side of the political spectrum than I do, and got upset when I used that phrase, reproductive health care. What the hell is that? That's not health care. It's something else. So health care is like, I don't
think getting triggered that way.
Huh?
Just trying to make it too big, though, because that's not all healthcare. It's a very specific thing being done, because it's not, like a removal of, it's not cancer surgery. It's not a breast augmentation. It's not fixing a, hurt ACL. It's a very specific thing. And so to try to make it so I do a blanket healthcare statement, because this isn't like, vitamin replacement therapy. This isn't anything simple. It's going to be like a very specific thing we're talking about with a very specific thing we want to do. So it's not a like huge health care grand thing. It's like, it's that thing. why don't we just call it what it is? That's the confusing part about it, is like, well, she wants to get abortions. Like, why don't you just call it that?
Because it is more complicated than that. And you saying that it's not is the problem. It's just this thing. It's not this other stuff over here.
So which is it, a cluster of different things then? And it includes all healthcare, or is it just this one thing?
Well, it's specifically,
as if I know nothing. Like, assume I know. I'm asking sincerely. I don't know.
I can choose whether or not I get a vasectomy, which controls whether or not I can reproduce. Right.
Okay. And she can get her tubes tied.
Sure. Yeah.
That would be the equivalent of that would be like tubes tied and vasectomy. That would be the equivalent, right?
Well, like, how are we defining equivalent?
Stop the ability to make children. Well, that means like without anybody's else involved. There's no other party required for whether I choose I'm going to even be able to reproduce or not. If you got your vasectomy, that's... And I do think that if you're married, I do believe that that's like a requirement to have some consent with your partner. I think that's fair because it is family. It is a family thing. And so I believe that, like, as a man, if I'm like, hey, I'm going to remove the option for children for my wife who wants to have more, like, that should be a consensual conversation. We did enter into a partnership for life. So I think that's a fair conversation.
So on the flip side of that,
if she's like, hey, I'm going to make it so you can never be a father again, and I shouldn't have to tell you about that, I think that's equally not as cool as if a guy did the vasectomy in secret. I think that would be like kind of it's a shady move in the marriage dynamic. It's secretive. It's kind of shady. And you probably wouldn't want to be on the other end of her going, oh, you know how I promised family for you? I removed that without without a conversation. Well, that would be a little that's a little dishonest.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with
that would be a little shady. That's a little bit of shady behavior.
Here's the issue with the assumption that that's what's happening. Granted, of course, like there's always
I didn't
examples.
make an assumption. I just said that's my point of view.
Okay, fair enough. That's you don't want to see that happen because you think it would be an unfair situation, especially in that family dynamic. I don't disagree with you.
My point of view on that, if a guy was like with a woman who wanted to have a family, like I want to have our kids, and he just went and secretly got a vasectomy, I would be like, dude, that's kind of a shady move. She wants a family, and you removed you made a promise of us together are a pair. We are a partner. You're my person. I love you more than anyone. It's you and me against the world. We made vows, not just not to cheat, but more vows than just not to cheat, which are also important for everybody to remember. Those ones count too.
Sure.
And so to honor, to love, to be honest, to cherish, to be like, you're my person, right?
Yeah.
And to go and remove that we can have a family without even consulting my partner feels very dishonest. It feels very disingenuous to like, you and I are in this forever,
previous
and I
agreements.
do a permanent removal.
Sure.
Right. That's where I say, like, if you're married and go, I'm going to do a vasectomy, I believe, this is my subjectivity, I believe what is right is having a conversation that you both are like, dang, let's go ahead and talk about this before you secretly just go, I'm just going to take care of it and remove your dreams for family without consent. I think that's just a dishonest move for the marriage dynamic. That's my opinion. And a woman getting her tubes tied, not being pregnant, getting her tubes tied without the man knowing, I think that's equally messed up. I think it's equally like you both removed family from the marriage. You removed it without family consent, without a conversation.
I would acknowledge in that situation that there's clearly not a good relationship there, because if there was, you would have that conversation. And that's part of a good relationship. Absolutely. I don't disagree with you.
So that seems like an unhealthy dynamic. So that's for that. Okay, so vasectomies and tube tied.
The difference would be...
Now let's go into pregnancy.
I want to legislate your ability to get a vasectomy. And if I don't agree, you can't make the choice about your own body. That's the difference.
Okay, so this is where I want like the actual thing versus the fear of a thing. So is there anything that goes like, if you try to get a vasectomy, you go to prison? Is that like a thing? I want to know like what's the actual consequence of like, if I get a vasectomy and like there's a police officer that hauls me to jail or something. Like, what is the actual danger? Because remember, like, I know women rank higher with the fear category because of potential danger. So I do want to know assessment of danger, and is it real, so I can go into like, oh, there's a protection or a fight back or a thing, or is it just maybe it could, that would be really bad if, because I can't protest maybe, but I could protest something that is.
Yeah, and
is there a thing where you can't have a vasectomy or you go to prison?
Are you saying in this analogy I'm making?
I'm trying to make sure the actual fear merits like the response. And so for me to have oh, fuck that, and have an emotional response to it, I want to make sure that the thing I'm being emotionally responsive to isn't fictitious, like it exists. And so if it exists, then I'm like, that exists. We got to do something about that.
Okay.
So does it exist? So that way I can go like, hey, we got to fight for men's vasectomies here.
And obviously, laws like that don't exist because men are encouraged to get vasectomies if they so choose.
Okay, so that doesn't exist. So there is no prison sentence for vasectomies.
No.
We won.
Nor getting your tubes tied.
We won.
Success in the vagary
girls
of
can get tubes tied.
Yeah,
yes. See? Nobody goes to jail.
That is good.
So there's nobody involved in this. Nobody gets killed. Nobody is murdered, and nobody goes to jail. We just won. Yes. Okay. Now let's go to one where people do get killed and people do have like family dynamic things and there are life and death choices. Let's go into that one because that's a little different. Because I think having like, I am not in a relationship at all and I just don't want children and making that choice, which is, I do think, just as a psychologist, I do think that it should be at least post 30 before those are even an option. Why? Because people aren't even fully developed in their brain until their mid-20s.
So
that means if a kid is 18 and gets his tube tied, like he gets a vasectomy, his brain isn't fully developed yet in order to make those choices. And even still, there's 1,000 studies showing that a kid making choices at 21, 22 is a very different human than 25, 26.
Yes, because brain
and
development...
that's just a couple years. Even marriage statistics.
Yeah,
are like how many over 70 percentile divorce rate in just those ages.
Okay, sure. And how many people feel that horrible?
I wouldn't think it's a good choice.
And I understand the argument there because just less potent. Like how many people are regretful of a tattoo they got when they were 18? Never mind,
of course,
getting a vasectomy or something. So yeah, I totally understand that. And there's a difference between hey, let's just let everyone do whatever the hell they want without any information whatsoever versus you have a right to make this decision, but we're going to give you all the information and you have to go through these, hurdles in order to get this thing that you want so we can make sure this is what you actually want. Because you clearly are emphatic about this, but I don't know if you have all the information.
You said that's the good one? Because the signal gets goofy, so I want to make sure I'm not misunderstanding. You think the go through hurdles is better, or do you think the no rules at all is better?
Go through hurdles
because I don't want to mess up the signal. I don't want to mess. So go through hurdles makes more sense, right?
Of course, yeah.
I'm with you. Yeah, going through hurdles makes sense. Cool.
Because
that's why don't drink at 21 is the thing. Like we don't want people drinking and driving at 18. That's unsafe.
Sure. And it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah, so we have regulations for something.
There are arguments about, if you can go in the military and kill people, you can have a drink. And I'm open to that conversation, but that's a different conversation.
I'm not I don't know if that would even help either of us for this because I don't give a shit about any of that.
No. It's just an acknowledgement.
So like as far as this goes, I'm with you. I don't give a shit. They can party hardy. So in this case, on this, if there's a regulation and understanding or education around it before the choice is made, like I really am very pro that. I'm pro, like, do you know what this is before you do it? Because I'm going to say, like, at risk, I have a family member who has had multiple abortions and has destroyed her insides and can never have children because she was very uneducated about the process itself. And so she wants to have kids and it's impossible for her now.
And
so that's a real consequence for her.
For sure.
It is. Yeah. It is a tragedy. So it's like one of those things where that was an unregulated, not really understanding the hurdles and making a poor decision over and over again has created a roadblock for her family. She can't have one. And so
Yeah,
she and it created a huge issue with her fiance. That became a problem too.
Well, I won't get into that.
That's a consequence of like being uneducated with these situations. It's a consequence.
Well, it's a consequence of being uneducated for education. Anything. Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a procedure, though. This is not getting your nails done. This is removing a human from inside of you, and it's a pretty rough procedure. Yes, it is.
And so with that, this is not the same as like getting her toenails done.
This is not something, and I don't know.
This has ruined her inside.
I've heard so many people who are opposed to any abortion rights say things like, well, it's ridiculous because we don't want people to use it as birth control. I don't know who the hell, and I'm not saying that can't happen, because I know it has. There are examples. But to assume that this is just something that everyone does is not only misinformed, it's just plain not true. So
here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to try and show you kind of the way that like it helps me to understand like the communication. So that way, like you and I can like be like, oh, I see where you're coming from. On this one, from like kind of what I know, people in this situation usually bring up the extremes. Like the ones where like if a 12-year-old is raped by her uncle and her father and is pregnant, they make up these incestual rape situations. And they're like, that's why everybody should use this as contraceptive. I'm like, two different universes there.
Yeah, very much so.
One is a brutal tragedy that girl is going to have she's going to have a total shit show of a life in her brain already. We got an already uphill battle with this little 12-year-old girl. That's a mess already. It's brutal, and 50 accounts. I'm like, not cool on any of those, right? Okay, so those I'm with. Anything that has to do with this birth is going to put the mother's life in danger. Like she is going like this. It's stillborn. It's rotting inside of her. This thing it's brain dead. It's not developing right. And the mother's life is at risk. I have never, ever heard of any case, because I know friends who that's happened to. There was no pushback. Zero. That has never been an issue. Like mother's life's in danger. We have to remove this. Never been a problem. They're like, yep, we're doing that. So anything that would fall into like the extremes, like this, and they did the numbers. It's like 1% of like these like wild, crazy level 10 rape and all that stuff. Too.
Yeah,
that part I have never, and I don't know, nobody right leaning or left leaning. I've never heard anyone who's against those ones. That's fine. Let's take care of those ones. Those are 1% extreme dynamics. Everybody's agreed. I've never had a pushback on that category, ever. So when everybody uses that 1% as like the baseline, doesn't make sense, because that's like saying like we should make the economy literally only based for people who make $250,000 or more a year globally. And you're like, the global annual income is like $9,000. Why would we make baseline $250,000? And you're like, no, I just go off of the 1%. And you're like, that doesn't make sense for an average. And so let's talk the 99%, because that's where the issue is for people, is the vast majority. So let's just agree 100% with you and me for the 1%. Everything that puts a woman's life in danger, save her. I'm with you. Anything that makes it so that was an incestual rape and it was a crime of fucking evilness, take care of that girl. No problem. Anything that's totally like, damn, that's a fucked beginning. I'm next to you all day long. Take care of that kid. Take care of that person. I'm with you.
Okay.
Now, the 99% that are like, I just don't want it. What are we supposed to do with this? Like, I don't want it. Like, instead of going, I was responsible, or I did, contraceptive, or, we're in this situation now. Like, well, that's the confusing part. And the more confusing part is not about the abortion. It's more about the time that it's done. Because I remember last time you were talking about, like, it's a clump of cells. I'm like, no, it is still going to be human. But the argument with people who are pro-choice, in which I'm not against the choice, I'm option, is just the timing of it. Because there's a very different thing going in the fourth week than it is going the 9th month. That's not the same.
Of course. And
somebody's in their 3rd trimester and that kid's about to come out, and saying grind up this fully developed baby is very different than like the 4th week.
That right there, what you just said, is the other side of the coin. That is the extreme that I hear constantly from people who are against abortion saying,
Good.
well, this is happening and that can't happen. The amount, I would say it's probably about 1%.
I'm just going, where's the line?
No, for sure. And I'm about to get to that. So
where's the line is always the question. Okay, good.
And here, and I'm gonna elaborate on that, and I think it'll make sense to you. So the other extreme, just like I said, is to the other end. And I know for a fact, at least according to statistics, I haven't interviewed every single woman that it happened to, but every single time there has been anything to do with a third trimester, anything, it has been because of some sort of medical issue, not just, I don't want this anymore. Because
with you on that,
those
ones are covered.
No woman will go through all of that to then at the last minute say, oh, you know what? And not to say that it can't or has never happened. There's always exceptions.
It has.
Sure.
It has. There are there's mentally sick people today. This has happened.
Absolutely.
So that's why it is messed
up.
Is it the norm? This is not the
norm.
Of
course not. No.
But there are some sick people out there.
Okay. So here's the question. Taking both of those extremes into consideration, allowing that, and then the rest to be the middle, right? So
good.
I am inconvenienced on one end, and my life is on the line on the other end, right? So
what's the inconvenience? So I don't misunderstand. What's the inconvenience?
Okay, so the inconvenience would be I just don't want a kid right now.
Okay, that's it. The child itself, the pregnancy itself is
the pregnancy is an inconvenience to my life.
And then the other side is what again?
And then the other side is if I don't
want to be inconvenienced.
Right, I don't want to be inconvenienced versus I'm going to die if I don't do something about this. Those are the extremes.
Of course.
Okay. So the question.
I'm with you on the die side. We've already agreed.
Yes, we've
what
already
about the inconvenience side? What about
Well, here's the question I'm going to pose to you.
Okay.
Who gets to decide what amount of inconvenience is okay? So how inconvenienced? Like, does it have to be all the way up to death? Can it be? I'm gonna not be able to have a child if I don't do this because I might get sepsis and then it would ruin the viability of the womb itself, and then I can't have kids after this if I allow this to continue. Is that inconvenienced enough? Or how far down does it go? Is it just, well, I'm bleeding out, but it's not enough to merit doing this according to the law, so I have to stay in this.
But Chris, all the examples that you just did were like the woman's life's in danger. So we're already covered. Those are all fine. We're good with those. What about the ones where it's going just fine and it's inconvenient?
Well, define inconvenience.
Like that's what I'm asking. The vast majority is well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, so
you just went into the ones that we already agreed. Like if she's in danger,
I'm
take
working
care
my
of her.
way down.
Like, she's in danger.
I'm working my way down. So it was death. Then it was.
Just let's help me out. This is where I am a mildly educated person. And so we can skip like the baby steps and kind of go to like, here's where I think the line should be. And like, you don't have to walk me through every stage of trauma to get to the line where like, I think it's at first trimester, or I think it's in the middle of second trimester. That's where I think the line is supposed to be. That would make it so I can go like, cause that's always been the debate.
The line for someone else to make a decision for the woman who's having the experience is viability. Do I think that...
Okay, so the kid's going to live.
Potentially. According...
This is where I'm with...
Up to right now, everything looks fine.
The kid's going to live. Things are going healthy. Yes, everything's going fine. Now, this is where I want what do you think, it's... Okay, they're going to get an abortion for pro-choice. They're going to get the abortion. But at this point, it starts getting a little like, this is just grinding up a kid. Like at some point, like that thing's got fingers and toenails and shit. That's a human. If we just took him out of the womb in the NICU, this kid would make it. Like where's the line where you go like the abortion is now getting really kind of twisted?
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's
like
not
what month or what week, like so that way I can understand.
Yeah, I get it. And I just
even your wife would say is the right number.
If we say viability, which would be about what? And now I don't want to misspeak because it's in towards the end of the second trimester, moving into the third, where viability becomes like a baby can exist outside the womb without Like if you take a baby out of the womb, they're just going to die. No matter how healthy they are, they're going to die.
Okay, so if you were, as long as you could, if you took the baby out, and so by 28 weeks, let's see if I can find a thing. By 28 weeks of the baby's development, if you took the baby out of the incubator, it wouldn't survive on its own. Up until then, totally cool.
Well, here's my point.
Right?
There's a difference between totally cool.
Well, I just want to make sure I understand. I want to make sure, like, the idea of, like, that
it,
seems like that's
matters.
fine. Like, that
language
would be
matters.
the okay line.
I would. Well, do I want that to happen?
What would be the correct way to say, like, that's
okay? Yeah, it is. I believe it is still the woman's choice because it is still, in essence, her body.
I haven't gotten to that part yet. I just want to make sure where she wants to choose first. Like, what is the choice before I say I'm with it or against it? Like, the argument is we should be able to get abortions without any pushback up to week 28. Like, is that the argument? Like, don't take our right to choose away up to week 28, because after that, I'm just grinding up a fully developed baby.
Well, and I'm not going to speak specifically to that idea.
But the specifics do matter. You just said that the words matter. So I do want to make sure that we can be specific together so I can agree.
You're saying certain words in certain sentences and
I'm
then
using
saying
very specific terms.
Right. But again,
okay, well, I'm asking because I'm trying to repeat. You said by the second trimester.
I am not the person having this experience. I'm asking just for clarity.
I really want to know.
Okay. According to me.
No, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to get the opinion.
My opinion, me specifically, no one else's influence? Yes.
Sure. Yes.
I don't think
you think week 28
a good thing.
Totally. That's it.
But I think women should have the choice.
Got you. By week 28, that's like where you're like, after that, now we were already in third trimester. Like, slow it down, ladies, right? Okay, cool. So that's all I want you to know. Like, where's the cutoff point where we just agree? Like, this is a little ridiculous. Like, that's just ridiculous for just human nature. Like,
all things being
28. If you're in week 35 and then you decide to just get rid of it, that's 8th month.
Yeah, and that's it.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure we're talking about.
If we're going bare bones in it, because again, these are kind of ridiculous analogies because nothing is a monolith, right? There's never there's so many issues and life experiences and nuances to all of these situations that there's never just one. It's never just one thing. Like a single decision.
I'm not making an analogy. I'm being highly literal.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no analogy. I'm going like, at what point should it be like that's too far? You said week 28.
So the point at which viability can happen outside the womb, I believe, is okay. Well, it is now a separate individual. It is no longer your choice because it's not you anymore.
So that's when you believe at week 28, now it counts as a human. It's a separate person now. It wasn't a separate person before, but now it is a separate person.
I wouldn't say it doesn't count as a human. I said it's not dependent on the mother's body to survive. That's how I would phrase it.
I can be with you there. That's not dependent on the mother, but still is a human. It's just it still has a dependency.
Yes.
Okay, cool. And so that's where I think the line should be for this, right? I'm just repeating at this point. I'm not adding anything. Okay,
that is where I would be willing to allow.
To be taken away.
I would be willing to allow me, not like I have a say in this. I'm just saying, in my opinion, it would be okay for me if people argued legislation at that point.
Okay, so that I'm not going to go against. I'm just going to go. Okay, cool. Week 28. After that you got to have the kid. You already went too far. You went 6 months already. Like, come on. Like, at that point, you already knew, right? I'm agreeing. Like, we're 6 months in here. Come on. What are you doing? Like we're already in this. We're in the home stretch, and you're gonna get rid of it. Now we're too far, right? I'm with you. Now, let's get into whose choice, because that's really the big thing. Is like nobody can choose for them, right? Like, you can't choose for the lady. Don't do that, right?
Right.
And now you're a father.
Yeah.
You're a father. You know, and you have boys, right? I don't know.
I have
kids,
2 girls.
But you have 2 girls. Okay, so as a dad, you got kids.
Yep.
And You're responsible for your girls, right? You protect your girls. You take care of your girls. You love your girls. You make them lunch. You love the shit out of them, right? You take care of your people, right?
I do, yeah.
Because dads matter. Like,
of
dads
course.
matter.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Dads, and if you look at the development of a human being, kids that have their dads around, good dads, if have dads who make effort and dads who are there, they develop so much better than just
Absolutely.
kids without dads.
Yes.
Right?
Total agreement. Yes.
So dads matter.
Absolutely.
Dads matter because that's your baby. That's your kids, right? Why doesn't the dad get a say in his child?
I'm not saying
part I don't
should.
understand is like, if she gets to go, well, that's where I do want to make sure that if we are doing like up to week 28, like I think that's both of your kid. Like, you
Right.
both made this. Just because you're the incubator doesn't mean that I didn't, like, you would have done that without me. My little boy or my little girl is in there. That's still mine. And for the next 20 to 30 years, I'm taking care of this one. That's mine.
Yeah.
I'm a dad. I've got my girls out here. I take care of them. Those are mine. I would die for these things. There's a connection there to a thing because they're little souls and their hearts, they matter to me because that's my girls. I love them. And you got those too.
Yeah.
Why don't you get to say, I don't want you to get rid of my little girl or my little boy because I want to spend my life with my legacy of these beautiful, amazing little humans? Why doesn't dad get to go, no, don't kill our kid? Why doesn't dad get to say, like, no, that's my kid too?
He does.
So then shouldn't it be our child, our choice, and not my body, my choice? So why wouldn't it be dad gets to have a say if dad has to make sure he's taking care of this kid their whole life, but he doesn't get to be in say of saying they get to even have their life?
Because the difference
Why not?
is, I'm not saying he doesn't get a choice and he doesn't have a right to a conversation and should be part of the equation all the way up until the decision. Because that, regardless of the input, the decision is still hers because it's her experience, her body, her quest, her, if you want to call it incubation. Yes, he was a part of it, and yes, he should have a say in that conversation. But the actual, like, regardless of anything else, when it comes right down to it, because it is her experience, her life, her body, her danger, the ultimate decision should still be hers. That's what I'm arguing. I'm not saying that someone should just go off and lie to their family and do, something on their own just because they feel like it. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying all of the things you're talking about, I agree with. I just don't think it should be legislated as the choice. The choice should be left to the mother. She should be informed by her partner, doctors, spiritualists, or, if you're a religious person, you want to go see a priest or a pastor, of course, everyone who you want to bring into the situation, who you feel a connection with, who you have a desire to share this experience with, and you want their input. And, hey, I'm scared. Can you be with me and have, what do we do here? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's just that the decision itself, because it's hers, should stay with her. That is the argument. That's it.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go with it. Now, let's say you're a dad.
Yeah.
And she's pregnant.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck yeah. And you find out, it's far enough, you're like, it's a little boy. It's going to be a little boy. And you're like, oh my God, I always wanted a little boy. I'm so excited. We got our 2 girls, but I always wanted to get that boy in there. I finally, we're doing it. It's good. It's good. And you're excited and you're picking out boy stuff. You got a little mitt for him. So when he gets old enough, you're already ready and you're excited. Every day you couldn't punch the smile off of your face because you're going to be a dad of a little boy. You're pumped and you love your girls so much and you get to make your family bigger and your legacy and all. It's so beautiful. And she's like, yeah, I don't think that I want this little boy. And you're like, no, that's I'm baby. Come on. This is our baby. I'm going to be the best dad to this little boy. I'm so pumped about this little guy. I'm excited. And she's like, yeah, I heard you. And I hear all of you guys saying it, but it's week 26. I got another week. I'm just going to go get rid of it. You're like, no. That's my little boy. I don't want you to get rid of my baby. I'm excited for the life I'm going to have with this little guy. She's like, yeah, my choice. And just goes and gets an abortion 26 weeks in, 6 months in. and like, just like, yeah, it's my choice. You don't get to have a say in it. You're like, yeah, well, fuck it. That's fair. Like,
I didn't say it was fair. I didn't say it was, and honestly, I think that example is a very disingenuous one because it does happen. I'm sure it does, but because that's not the norm. It's not.
Why would it be disingenuous? Wait. Wait. I'm not talking about norm. I'm talking about like, is it? You're talking about viability outside the room. I'm talking about viability of practice.
If you're
I'm talking about the rights of the parents.
Sure. If you're creating a hypothetical in which that is all true, I think it's a tragic thing.
Well, I went off of your example.
Right.
I
am saying yes.
I'm going
that
off
woman
of what
has a
your
right to
opinion
do that.
is. If I follow your opinion,
do I think it's a good thing
to me? Like, that's
do I think
rough
it's a good?
like,
do I think it's good? Do I think that it should have happened? Do I think right? No. But to assume to take that choice away from every other
have to
woman,
go into full diagnosis. I'm just saying, as a diagnosis, if somebody is willing to say at 7 months, like I'm at 27 weeks in, I'm going to go and fully abort this almost third trimester baby. Like, I would have to say there's got to be a disorder. There's something going on that's like, there's an instability. There's something wrong with the paternal instinct is completely upside down.
But
something has gone wrong.
And should there be
so
every
that would
effort
fall under a mental disorder?
Should there? Well, and regardless,
to preserve the baby for the healthy father, sure. Like, there should be something where like something's up with mom if she wants to get rid of a healthy baby. There's something wrong. There's something to say a healthy baby is going to be removed from a mother. There is something that's got to be off, or even just self-preservation, because we talked about survival and we talk about, like, you know, the fear instinct, and we talk about preservation of the health of humans. And if somebody is like, hey, I have a fully healthy child growing right now, and I'm pushing third trimester, it's getting to the point where now it's just inhumane, right before inhumane, because it doesn't count for me, let's grind this thing up and get it out of me. That, for me, I feel like for motherly instinct and paternal instinct, there's a disconnect for biology of self. There's something to say, I want to kill my own offspring. And for anything in nature where the mother starts to kill their own offspring, there was something that went tragically wrong. Something went very wrong.
And that could be.
And so to say like that should be like considered normalized, I don't want to normalize.
I don't want to normalize that either.
Some sort of.
I don't want to take away the woman's ability to make the choice. I agree.
Right, but I don't think that it's totally cool for a father who's a good man, good father, a committed good guy, to not be able to say, "Hey, I have to sign off on this," and that's why this is very complicated, because that guy's on the hook for life for this kid if born. Why doesn't dad get a say on whether the kid can live or die? That part is a little confusing because we have to skip reason and create fear to justify. And that's why it's like, well, we have to be unreasonable and go.
We have to skip reason and create fear.
It's just her. It's just her only.
Where did that
That's
go?
what it is. Like, well, I don't want it and all this, and I don't want these things, and it's going to be inconvenient for me, and I don't want it. And he's like, but I want it. That's my kid. That's my baby. And if it's the other way around, that guy's a piece of shit. If he's like, I don't want the kid, get rid of it. And she's like, I do want a kid. I do want it. He's like, I don't want it. I don't want to pay for it. That would be inconvenient for me. And she's like, you're a dirtbag. But if it's the other way around, he's like, I do want the kid. I want the kid. I'm so excited for a kid. And she's like, I don't want it because I don't want to deal with it. That's not selfish. And she's not a dirtbare.
I didn't say that.
This removal of logic is hard for me to grab.
I never said that that's not a bad thing to do, or that there I would be questioning her level of competency going about it the way you described.
Fair enough.
No, that's like, whoa, lady, what are you doing?
Like, that's really unhealthy.
Once again,
right.
I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying it shouldn't be legislated. That I'm coming back to that every time.
Okay, so now you
go ahead.
Good. Well, that's what I mean. Now, is it now where like the law says, and I'm very with you, so let's not add in anybody who's going to die or this is like a totally fuck scenario.
All right.
Contraceptively.
Yeah.
Like there should be no legislation, because I'm just letting you know as far as human behavior, if it's not mandated that people have to go through the hurdles that you said to be able to go, I need to be educated on this before this choice. I'm telling you, people don't go to school if they don't have to.
Oh, sure. There's a lot of
they
that.
won't. This group of people we're talking about will not go into education. They're going to go into selfish preservation, and that's a very different system. And so,
Well, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Any regulations? Because even with the 28, so even with week 28, which you said I don't think they should be allowed to do that.
Oh.
How do we regulate this? Like, if there is no legislation and no societal agreement, how do we have it done in a healthy way? Because that would be like, I'm with you, but how?
Well, what is your goal with this? To reduce the number of abortions?
To be healthy. No, to understand, but I'm not getting that. I'm getting questions. I'm not getting answers.
I mean,
so I'm trying to understand.
With regard to your personal opinion and desire to see things legislated in a certain way, because as you said, with regard to people, they're going to make a choice without education, and they have that ability, they will, because it's easier. And I get that.
Are you asking what my opinion is? Because I'll tell you my opinion, but I don't. That's also not a legislation. That's just an opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
You want? Oh, my opinion?
Your opinion.
Okay, here's my opinion. I think abortion, it's a lose-lose no matter what. If we remove abortions completely, we have a bunch of unwanting to be parents and fucked up asshole parents having a bunch of kids who are probably going to be abused or thrown into a system that's not designed for an influx of unwanted children. So that's a lose anyway. So if we have too many unwanted kids, that's a whole new system. But there's opportunity there. We can create better systems for adoption because there's a lot of families who want to have kids that can't have kids. And so if we make the adoption process substantially better, that could be a solution instead of making it like 30 grand to get a kid when, you know, these people who have too many kids and don't give a fuck will just throw it in the dumpster. So let's make it so good people who want children, let's make that a better system. So that would work. That would be a solution if we have unwanted children. Fair enough. Now we have people who want families that can't make them, who can have them. That's one possibility. The other route to it, where it goes into like, where we are getting rid of babies, we're getting rid of them. Like my cutoff point would be somewhere around like week 14, like the third month, where I'm like, we're 3 months in. Yes, you are getting rid of a human being. Like, you are. Don't call it you're not, because I've never seen a woman who gets a pregnancy test that says pregnant, and she's pregnant with like an inanimate object, like a bag of nickels or like a box of shoes or something. It's going to be a baby. There's going to be a human being that's going to come from a woman who's pregnant. And so it'll eventually be a human being. So we can't call it not going to be human. It's going to be a person. But acknowledge at least I'm going to be killing a baby. That's the procedure by definition. Like, that's what it is. So call it what the fuck it is. Don't do that. So I'm like, okay, you're killing a baby. Do it by like the third month and, you know, take it up with big guns upstairs. That's your thing. That's fine. And so like the religious group all gets their satiation because like, it's not my place to judge. Jesus said, Matthew 7, let them do their thing. God's got it. They got to atone. That's theirs. I can't do shit with that. And then as far as like, well, it's not going into the thing's pretty developed and it's got fucking hair and fingernails and shit. So let's not kill it then. But you're still doing that. There's no win. All the way around, it's still as a contraceptive kind of a fucked thing all the way around. There's no real win set up for either side right now. And so to make this thing about like your rights taken away, it's like, well, just do it before it's fucking inhumane. At least like we're like, you're not showing out here and it doesn't have all these digits and heartbeats and all this shit. Like, it's whatever it's doing, just call it what the fuck it is, and then you'll take it up with God. That's fine. Well, I just wouldn't say by the third trimester, because I'm like, geez.
And again,
it's a lose-lose, though. This is a no-win topic. What I'm misunderstanding, and this is the part that's crazy. Here's my crazy part, is the part where women are so up in arms about contraceptive abortion. Because we've already agreed, if it's at the woman's risk, absolutely nobody argues. Not woman's risk and just her decision that she doesn't want it, that part's a little different. I think we could have a better system for that as a humanity.
I do agree.
Like, just as a human society, we can do better than let's grind them up.
Well, and again, I don't think any.
So I don't know which women are trying to get all these abortions that they're like, right?
Because they don't
Also, like childbirth has become a lot more complicated since 2022. That's become a problem too.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've been watching the birthing numbers.
Well,
there's a big decline in women who can even conceive these days because of things going on. There's a lot happening.
There's also a rise in maternity and fetal mortality rates because the decision is now with the states. So what everyone seems to be doing is
not because of the decision with the state.
Huh?
Did you say mortality rates from like just unhealthy pregnancies are because of the decisions of the states?
I'm saying I
don't want to misunderstand what you
I'm saying
said.
as soon as Roe v. Wade was overturned and the decision about abortion laws went to the states, maternity and fetal mortality rates have gone up.
Like, are you saying like unhealthy pregnancy?
I mean, just across the board.
I'm trying to ask very clearly,
statistically speaking, there are more women.
Like people are having.
I don't know the ratio to healthy versus unhealthy. I'm simply acknowledging the fact that the statistical reality is that more women and more babies are dying now since that has happened. That's just a statistical fact. We can get into the nuance of that, but that's just what's happened. So if the goal is
become like normalized to go do it, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
If the goal is to wait, what?
Shouldn't this be a weird thing, Chris? Like shouldn't like getting an abortion be like, this is a really rough thing to do, not an exciting, like we need to make sure
and
we can do it.
Fucking is.
And wouldn't yeah, and so wouldn't women want to like? Wouldn't it make more sense that women would be like, we need more regulation and not more freedom on this? Wouldn't women think that? Because like it is like mothers getting rid of babies, like that is a weird thing to do.
This
is where I kind of don't understand like the radical argument of it.
The radical argument
women
is
go like,
I want to make the decision. I want to make the decision that's going to affect me, my family, and my body and my child for the rest of my life. I don't want someone else to make that decision. That's the argument. That's it. Foundational everything. We can argue about like, is there a soul that enters the body at conception or in the third trimester? Does a baby not exist unless they take a breath, like in Jewish law? I don't know. It doesn't matter. That's the point. That can never be officially acknowledged because it's always going to be a subjective argument, unless somehow science discovers.
Which means you're always right.
Huh?
Yeah, I mean, even still, if you have a belief system, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. You'll make it so it's not. So it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Even if it was scientifically proven, you would just say that study is bullshit. So it doesn't matter.
I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people.
This is where I want to get into.
Well, and again, it's going back to perception.
So is your wife up in arms because? Well, this is where I kind of get confused, and this is where it's not even me fucking with you. It's not as clear as you may feel it is. I really am not getting it clearly. Like, all right, so we went from like the catcalling and the fear and the girls are in danger to now their rights are removed, and like they want to be able to fight like this is what I believe is right. And this is why it's so hard for this conversation is if it is answered with a question, it means you don't fucking know. And that's why it's hard for me. Like, that's why I was like, well, what month do you think? And if you're like, well, what do you think about this? I'm like, no, what month? And you're like 28. I'm like, cool, that's an answer. I'm with 28. And then you're like, all right, so who makes the call? I'm like, I think both parents should be involved. You're like, no, both parents shouldn't. I'm like, but isn't he on the hook for the whole life?
I did not say that.
Yes, but she gets to have the call, though. You did say it's okay if she makes the call without the guy.
I said...
You did say it's her choice at the end of the day. Whether you agree or don't agree, she still gets to make the call. Even if he says no, she can still say yes. And you're like,
that
can't do shit, dude.
Yes, that is the version I'm talking about. And
that's what I did say. That's what I'm saying.
The
so
first
like,
time
even if he's like, no, and she's like, I don't care. Like, she can still go do it, even if he's like, I want to be a dad. And she's like, fuck you. And like, it stands, right?
Yeah, if that's in that shitty situation, I still think it should be her right, because if it's not her right, then it's not anyone else's right in a much better situation, which is the majority of the time. It's a conversation.
But if that kid is born, it does become... But if that kid's born, it does become both parents' responsibility for that child.
Sometimes. How many dads walk away? How many moms walk away? Should it be?
I mean, ideally,
if you're asking if it should be, then yes, I agree. It should be. Will it be?
Right. Well, we're in should. Or whose opinion
if
should
we're
it
in
be?
Should,
what should it be? Yeah.
It should be both of your decision, and it should be both of your responsibility. If we're talking about should, then yes, I totally agree with you.
Right.
Yes.
Cool. That makes sense. That's a line for me. Okay, that's the line that makes sense of what is right. I'm with that.
So it's right up into the how would we like this to be ideal? I'm in total agreement with that.
Yeah,
yes.
That's a mess. That's the mess. Yeah, it's a mess. Like, that would be ideal if we could do it that way. That's why I think dad should be able to sign off. It's his kid too. She can't do it without it signing off. And then this could also go into, well, I don't want the baby and he does. Well, wouldn't he then be able to go like, well, I accept responsibility for my kid?
Yeah, and I get that
if you don't want it, but I do. It's
and
my
you know what?
Shouldn't he be able to do that?
If it was possible for, like, you remember the movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where they just basically implanted a uterus inside his body and he was pregnant? If that was possible and the dad wanted to take that on, hell yeah, I'd be in total agreement with that.
But here's where it gets confusing, is because in order for a baby to be in there, she had to make a choice too. And why doesn't that one count?
Why doesn't what count? The choice. What choice?
Conception. Why doesn't conception count? Well, because that was a choice. Like, she was like, again, we're going to remove all the forced ones.
Sure.
Like, no, I consensually had sex with my partner unprotected and a baby is coming. Like, well, that was a consensual choice.
Sure.
Why isn't the result of that consensual choice another consensual choice? That's where I kind of get confused, is because it did take two to tango in that one, but then, like, one person doesn't get to have a say for the mutual tango. And that's also a little like, well, why not?
Because
she got pregnant doing a thing that makes babies.
Sure. Yeah. And are we talking about should? Are we talking about what is?
Well, I think should is, in this case, should is important because we have to have an idea of what we believe is right. Like, not about because we get so caught up in who, like, what could we go? Well, we could at least both agree. Like, that would at least be like the best scenario, even if it's totally fucked anyways. It's fine. Fucked.
If we're in should, then I will say, should there be a responsible involvement in sexuality? Yes. Should there be consent between two people to have that experience? Yes, absolutely yes. Should there be consent with regard to the conversation if and when a pregnancy happens? Yes.
Yeah. Sounds good.
This what is and what should be are two separate things. And I think it's great that we're all striving for should be, but if we deny what is, then we can't address the actual problem because we're over here in perception versus reality.
I love it. Listen, I fully agree with that.
Okay.
I totally agree with that. And like all elements, even if it was talking about like, should people murder? They're like, no, so we should make laws to not murder because they shouldn't do that. Cool. The reality is fuckers murder, so let's make it so they shouldn't do it without consequence. Yeah, I'm with you. And so should people take care of their kids? Yes, they should. Shouldn't be a fucking problem if they don't. Yeah, it probably should be. That's society. And so what's the reality? If people are being fucking maniacs, we should have a regulation for stopping maniac behavior. For me, killing babies is maniac behavior. That's a little crazy to me. My opinion for should. If someone wants to get really pissed off because they're not killing babies, that for me, as a psychologist, would say probably not healthy mindset behavior if I'm really mad I can't kill a baby today. Like, that for me would go under fucking maniac. Like, this is psychopathy. This goes into I have no remorse or connection to the human element. I'm okay with killing it. And that part goes into, like, if we go into shoulds, it should be an important thing to make sure we do preservation of human life. That's the should. And for someone to have zero connection and remorse for removing human life, again, murder's bad.
Again, you're going to extreme.
This is where it gets. It's not extreme. This is where you want it to be extreme to be right. It's not extreme to say killing is killing.
No, what I'm saying
not
is
extreme. That is just reality. That's reality.
Reality. What?
Killing is killing. That just is.
Are we talking human life?
Killing
Are we
is killing.
Talking any
if something
life?
is alive and then no longer alive.
and it was purposefully
human life. If something is
human life, that we need to be specific, because there are plenty of people killing plenty of animals.
If a woman is pregnant, sure, we're not getting into the animal talk because we didn't complete this one yet. And so on this one, again, if a woman was pregnant with inanimate objects, then I'm like, what did she get in there? If she's pregnant with like Pokemon cards or a fucking bowling ball, I'm like, oh, that's a fucking bowling ball. Get that shit out of there.
Yeah,
that's going to be a person. And so it is removing a person. That by definition is what an abortion is. It is removing a human being. It just is. If you leave it alone, you got a kid. That's what it is. It just is. That's not me saying you're a good person, bad person. It's like, that's what the procedure is to remove a human baby. That's an abortion. Nobody confuses it with like a present from Santa Claus. It is a fucking abortion. It's killing a baby. That is. It just is. And so, okay, that's what it is. I'm not telling who's right or wrong. That's still killing a baby.
And you
removing human life.
You keep going back to this because and I can disagree with you.
But I know you do. That's fine. I still call it that, though, because she's pregnant with a human being. She's not pregnant with stuff. It's not things. It's a
fair
person. Enough. If you leave it out, you used to be one of these things. You were a fetus, and now we're talking. Like,
yes,
we become this.
Sure. And it is
so,
your belief.
Your baby girls became your daughters. They started off as these things, and they become this. This is what they become.
I understand. I understand how it works. I understand more than most, actually. At least men, anyway.
So how do we not call it that?
So if your assumption is that from the second of inception, it is a human being the entire time, and any removal of that human being, gonna be correct. I would agree with that. So at any time, you would consider that murder.
It's almost like saying it. Yeah, you're killing it. The procedure itself is to do what? This is where the delusion here has to be called the fuck out, dude. If you're going to do an abortion, it's to do what? Remove a pregnancy of a human being.
Sure.
Like, what do you call abortion? What do you call it? Like, it's not doing a coloring book. It's removing a human from another human. It's removing a baby from inside of a person. That's an abortion. Am I not getting what the procedure is?
We're
to make a person pregnant, not pregnant, right?
Correct. Yes.
Is it to make a pregnant person no longer pregnant? Well, what is a pregnant person pregnant with? It's not a jar of pickles. It's a person. So they're going to get rid of a person to not have another person. That's an abortion, right? I'm not even fucking with you. I'm like, that's just what it is.
And what do you want me to say if I did? Not the whole time. No, it will be a person. Yeah.
Well, tell me what it's. Yeah. It's not. That's the confusing part.
It's not yet, is what I'm saying. In certain instances, right?
So then,
is an acorn an oak tree
or remorse or no nothing?
Is an acorn an oak tree or is it an acorn?
It's not like that's not. If you, this is going to turn into an oak tree if you plant it and take care of it. It turns into that.
Sure. But it's not right now.
So then, again, but not planting the oak tree isn't a procedure where somebody goes and removes something from your body. Abortion is not an oak tree. This is an elective procedure done to remove the fact that I will have a child if I don't.
Yes.
That's what an abortion is. Like, I don't know.
Yes.
Like, that's what it is. I'm not even trying to say who's right or wrong. I'm like, it just is that. So to say I'm not doing that is the confusion I have. Like, it's fine. Just call it what it is. That was our argument last time. It's like,
no, I know.
I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying don't call it. It's not that.
But if I'm holding something.
That's the only part that gets confusing to me.
Yeah. And we just have different definitions of what a person is, I guess, versus.
But we're still doing a procedure to make sure that this won't be a person. I got to make sure if I leave it alone, it will be. You'll have another son or daughter.
Potentially.
If I leave it alone, you will have a son or daughter. Just because you don't understand when a soul shows up doesn't mean that won't be a person.
Right. Potentially.
Just because you're like, science hasn't shown when a soul is inserted into this clump of cells. And so since I don't know when it is, because the perception of the truth that I don't understand, well, then that means there's no remorse for destroying it. It doesn't matter. Well, that's a logic that I'm like, I hear you.
I'm
and I
certainly
understand,
not saying it doesn't matter.
Agree.
I'm certainly not saying it doesn't matter. Let's be clear on that. And I will take it back to the same argument.
I didn't hear.
Oh, I said it's certainly not that it doesn't matter. I never said that.
Okay, right.
But going back to the inconvenience factor with the woman, right? So if your desire is to protect the woman, if her health or life is at stake, regardless of the importance of the human that is coming along, right? So
sure.
What you're saying there is the mother is more important than the baby.
I'm with you.
Right. So if she's not in danger, then the mother's not more important than the baby, is what you're saying.
Wouldn't they both just be the same importance? Because they're both like, it's kind of like saying if I'm holding a baby, well, which one's more important? It's like they're both important.
Okay. So
at that case, like if it's a healthy baby, healthy mom, they're both important.
Yeah, I would say they were both important.
Like you protect them both. I don't just pick one. I don't go like, fuck this kid, only save the girl. I go protect them both. And so that part, I don't understand the question for like which one's more important. I'm like both.
Right, but when it comes right down to it,
of your pack.
When it comes right down to it, because of the situation with the potential danger to the mother, in that situation, we can all agree that the mother is more important.
Again, Chris.
I know.
Please, just can we remove the 1%? We're not talking about that. We've already agreed. Like if the mom's going to die because this baby's got some massive issue that it's going to kill the mom or the mom's in danger. Those have already, no one's been against that. Everyone's like, go ahead.
All right, so what are we arguing here? Fine. Because 90% of the abortions that are elective take place in the first trimester in exactly the time you're talking about.
Well, here's the thing that's confusing. This is why this is confusing, is I don't know exactly what you want to say it's being removed. That's why I understand why everyone's so scared when I'm like, well, what got removed? And they're like, I can't get an abortion up to week 28. And I'm like, do you really, 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 really want to do that? They're like, I love that shit. And I'm like, why do you fucking love that shit? Why are we fighting for this? Now, if you're needing this done for danger purposes, there are no issues. There's no states that are like, you can't fucking do that. And they're like, well, they could do that. I'm like, did they do that? They're like, no, but they could. I'm like, so it's not happening? Well, no, but it could. I'm like, so it's not real?
There is something happening. And I'm like, okay. I could get into that if you'd like. But
is there one where it's like, that one is, they'll kill the mom. They don't give a fuck. If there's a place that's like that, like, I'm with you. Like, whoa, they're killing moms.
There have been
what's
multiple,
going on?
This is what I'm talking about. The increase in maternal mortality is directly connected to the fact that the laws that exist in certain states are not specific enough for doctors to make educated decisions. So they're waiting until the very last moment where it's definitive that the mother is truly in danger. And after that point, there's either death or major health complications or things because the doctors
can't. Is that law or doctor?
But that's law.
What law then? Because if there's a law that says which law? So I can make sure, like, whoa, that law's fucked.
The law. All right, I can't give you. I'd have to look up the specific examples. The law basically states.
Let's look it up. Like,
okay, let's look it up.
I'll look it up with you. Let's look it up. I honestly don't know which one you're talking about. Which one should I look up so I can do it with you?
Let's see. I don't know. Let's.
How should I work? Because I'll Google it. Let's look it up together.
Okay. And I'm trying to think of, well, let's just do this.
I'll put it, state that will let the mother die even with complications law. I'm going to try and be specific to see if I can find something on this. Let's see. No state abortion bans include exceptions that allow doctors to perform abortions to save life of a pregnant person. So I don't see any banned exceptions. All states abortions. Let's see. Do not ban. Most states abortion includes exceptions to preserve the health. So it means they have exceptions to preserve health, exceptions for rape and incest, exceptions for lethal fatal anomalies. It says there are no states that are stopping this right now. All the things you're talking about says there are no states that do that. So maybe I need a different search engine because I don't see anything that says we will kill the mother. There's no states.
No, I'm not saying
exclude or that include exceptions.
Okay. There we go.
Because I want to be with you, but it says there are none of these.
Yeah, and I don't.
So there are no states that would
know
kill
what
the mother.
Okay.
I'll share my screen with you. Like I'll show you what I looked up. Like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You want me to share screen so you can? Okay.
Sure. And
I
have a story. I don't know if I can share my screen with you. But...
Man, let's go to the window here. Let's do this. Okay. So I was looking at this and I just looked up. Will the state let the mother die even with complication law? Okay. It says there are no abortion bans, including exceptions to allow doctors to perform abortions to save the life of a pregnant person. But I'm open to see if there is one or there's a different thing I should look up to go, because this right here gets into propaganda. I know that gets into fear mongering and people start making up shit. But right now I'm like, is there any states that do that? And I don't see any.
Okay. So
I want to be like,
well, because let's be honest,
so like,
because
I want to be in your corner.
Just because it says something in a law, right? Like the law has changed. So what you're talking about doesn't exist versus someone's interpretation of that law in a situation, or, obviously it can get complicated unless the law is specifically worded in a certain way that can't be skewed, right? So
if that happened, yeah.
Okay. So I just found this story for starters. I'm trying to skim it to find the potent points, but so there was a woman in Texas.
Well, this is where it gets complicated. Is when people go into like a story or a post or a share that's like just people sharing opinions on things.
No, this is an actual happening. Like what happened to somebody.
Okay, now this is where I would go. Like, it's not one of the laws, which I think that was the argument, is taking women's rights away. And that's the part where I'm like, I want to be on your team for which rights were made to hurt our girls. So and then I want to be like, let's fix the rights, because I don't see the rights that we're talking about. So I can like be like, we got to get them.
Okay.
Because
so
that
you're
didn't exist. And so there may be
am...
people who are bad doctors. There's bad doctors. That's true. There's bad doctors. There's bad everything. There's bad everything. So if you have a story for somebody who has a bad doctor, I'm like, fuck that doctor. Fuck him. I'm with you.
Okay.
But is it a law that he obeyed to remove her rights to kill her? And I'm like, I don't see that law, but that's a bad doctor.
Well, and yeah, that's obviously there is no law saying let the woman die. That's not what we're talking about. Or at least not what I'm talking about.
So I do want to make sure that if there is, well, that's what my worry is if the women are up in arms over rights, I want to be like, which one? So that way we can be like, oh shit, that one. Not the fear of one, because that's not one. But which one is the one? So that way we go like, no, I vote no on that. That's crazy. Because if we do a vote for not having women being able, like they have to die, like, I don't know anybody who's going to vote yes for kill my wife because of complication in pregnancy. I don't know a single human being. I have thousands of guys in my group. I don't know a single one who would be pro, like, fuck her, let her die. Like, none. Zero. And so, if that was a real thing, we would be united on don't let our wives get killed over something that's a complication they can't control. That's a procedure that can be done to save your wife because the baby has a fatal anomaly, or it's going like there's something that's very unsafe with this pregnancy, and the mother is at risk of death.
Yeah, there
is nobody on the side of let her die. Nobody. Okay. There's no right or left leaning. No, like that sounds good.
I would hope not. Yeah. So this is
right.
A story.
I don't know a single person.
I don't either. This is a story from a woman in Texas who had, her baby had a terminal issue where the part of the skull and brain didn't develop. So even if the baby was born, it would not have survived. So according to the Texas,
I'm with you there.
Okay. According to the Texas abortion law, she couldn't get an abortion because the baby was still alive, technically, regardless of the fact that it would not survive, no matter how long the pregnancy lasted. So the if you want to look it up, the issue was called
Texas has so Texas would be one that you're like, watch Texas laws. Okay, so Texas law includes exception to its abortion ban cases where the pregnancy's life is at risk. The patient must have a life-threatening condition. The patient is at risk of death, substantial impairment to bodily function if the abortion is not performed. And the physician must try to save the life of the fetus unless it would increase the risk of the patient's death or impairment. So far, it says like the first part is anything that would make it so the mom's not going to be okay. You got to get rid of the baby. Like if there's a fatal issue like that happen. Okay. So, however, some critics say that the law's vague language provides providers legal jeopardy and patients at risk. They argue that the inception may not be a bug, but a feature. Okay. The law can outline every possible medical emergency. The doctors have the power to make the final decision. All right. So I guess that this is where it kind of gets into like, well, what do we have doctors for if they're not understanding the situation better than us? And this gets into, should we train our medical people better? That's different. And then the penalties for violating abortion ban. It doesn't say anything here against, like, if the mother's life is at risk. So, like, this seems like one of those ones where the doctor, like, made a bad doctor call.
The story...
Like, because, like, if this baby doesn't have a working brain, the skull isn't developed, and the doctor's like, fuck that. Like, isn't that just a bad doctor? Because even you and I, as not doctors, that seems not good.
Right, but
I don't even have to go to medical school to go like, this kid doesn't have a head that's developed and its brain isn't working. That's not good.
But that seems like common sense from a medical perspective, right? I don't even have to be a doctor to be like, clearly this is okay because the child is not even existent. It's just a body in a womb. There's no person there.
Well, it won't be able to function. Like even if it was considered a person, it won't be able to be a functional piece of society ever. It'll have a vegetable life. Well, that's not existence that would be
some would
feasible
argue
to the mother or
it's
the
a
child.
life,
fair enough.
But it's a life.
But this is one of those fatal anomalies, and so this is the 1%. Like on this one, this is where like I don't know why these examples are the baseline. They're not baseline. This is not the regular. The kid born with no head or no brain or something is not the regular. Those aren't the ones we're talking about. I'm talking about the one where the kid's just fine.
Okay.
And the mom is just fine.
90% of those happen in the first trimester. There's no... Why are we even talking about it more?
So then what rights are being taken away that I don't know what we're talking about? I still don't know what rights are taken... Because if they can still get it done in the first trimester... I'm not understanding why everybody's up in arms about their rights because they're still doing it, and this doesn't seem to be a problem. Right. Where's the thing in the bushes then? Because it looks like you're still doing it. So what's the issue?
So
I don't know where the boogeyman is. I want to kick his ass with you, Chris. I want to fuck this dude up with you, but I don't see him. So I'd punch him, but where is he? I want to get him.
The assumption is because the law exists, then you don't have a right to choose. You're forced to do it, even if you were going to do it anyway. You're still forced, and that might seem like semantics, but that is the definition of bodily autonomy.
No, but you said, but this is where you contradict yourself, and I'm going to call you out a little on this one.
Tell me how I did
after week 28, that's fucked up. You said after week 28, that's fucked up. You shouldn't be able to do that. That's where you shouldn't be allowed to do it. Week 28, right?
I said I would be
willing. The semantic
problem
is.
I would be willing to allow legislation there. My opinion. That's what I'm saying.
That's your opinion, right? You said like week 28. That's where it should be the cutoff. That's your opinion of like that's when there should be a cutoff because that's getting fucked up, right? And I'm not against you. I just want to know what week do you think it is? That's always the abortion argument is what week. If they're like week 14, that's the week that cut off, or like week 7, that's the cutoff. Like that's where the argument is at what week, because from what I understand in Texas, you can still in the first trimester get rid of the kid. You can still do this within the first trimester. So pay attention to if you're pregnant, and then in the first trimester, take care of it. Like I didn't say don't, they can still do it. It's just don't do it in the middle of the second trimester or the third trimester. It's the line that's the debate. That's always the debate is like, where's the line? And for you, it's at week 28. Another person, it's in the whole trimester, and another person is going to be week 7. It's like, well, where is the line that we can go? How can we, in the most humane way, make it so this lady's not showing, it's not affecting her hormones in a very different way. She's not holding a human full child, a developed child, and then we do this? Where's the least damage that can be done to the person, which is still going to do damage, but you consensually understand in all areas? Where's that, like the week 25, week 8, week 15? They can still do it. It's just at a certain line that people don't like. So if it's the line that's the argument, is what it seems like.
Then my answer to that would be to leave it to women to make the decision legislatively.
But women won't be making clear decisions. You're assuming massive education on these. Are like a lot of these are like 17-year-olds or like 21-year-olds. They're not doing the education that you may be assuming. This isn't a 42-year-old. Most of these are going to be young kids who just wanted to fuck. And that's where the issue is like, well, what are we doing here? When can let's see, Texas law, what week can Texas?
I do want to check in because we're hitting 2 hours and we've only talked about one topic. So,
oh no, you're good. Well, I just want to make sure, because this is important to you and your family, and I want to make sure. So up to the 6th week in pregnancy, with exceptions of things that go wrong after that. And so they still say within the first trimester, like you can still have an abortion within 6 weeks of pregnancy, like, because then it's past heartbeat bill legislation. So that's the idea that state says within the first month and a half, take care of it. But if it's after that, come on, we got a heartbeat. Like that's that state's opinion, but it didn't say none. It just says like be aware that you're having unprotected sex and you're not having your period. You should maybe just be on checking if you're pregnant, because you are having people have orgasms inside of your body. And you should probably check that shit out.
And what percentage of those is just people not giving a fuck versus contraception failing?
That's a good question. What the percentage of abortions for birth control? Looks like, according to data, this is where it gets tricky, because there's every single one of these studies now says a different number. This one says, let's see. This one goes into 50%. This one says more than 50%. All right, this is where it gets into, you'd have to probably rabbit hole. This one says 42. Probably. This one says 61. Each study is getting different numbers. So this is where it gets tricky, is because, well, if we just talk about what percentage, because this is the Guttmacher Institute. That's 51% of women who have abortions have reported using it as a contraceptive method within the month they became pregnant. So this would be 51% do it the way it's like, that's the way it's set up. So at least half. Let's just call it the half. I know it's higher than this, but let's just say it's half. Because what would be the other reason they're doing it is like if it's a healthy baby? Because I can't say that. Would you really say 49% of pregnancies are the radical complications with no brain kids? I don't think it's that high.
No,
I don't think that doesn't seem right. And so, because otherwise we would every other woman that you know would be having extreme complications. Let's see. Here's a CDC one, which I don't know how accurate, but we can look in the CDC. And let's see. This goes into methods, variables, measures of abortion. Data presented analysis, abortion mortality. All right, there's a lot to read here, and I have to go through it. So I'm just trying to be clear. Here it is, weeks, gestation method period, 30% 2012. This just shows it goes up a lot. Gestation weeks. Okay, so between week 10 and 13, and abortions between week 14 and 20, it says 98% of abortions, 96 to 98% of abortions are between week 14 and week 20. These numbers are all over the place, though. This isn't accurate. This is kind of hard to use as
and it's obviously a ton of different
So this is where it's like, well,
stats.
Because I would want to make sure, like, well, then what are we protecting, and what are we going to say? Like, this is where my uproar for my daughter's rights are. If these are all, like, again, the perceptions instead of the realities, well, I don't want to fight things that aren't there, but I do want to make sure things that are we address.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's where these are the questions I'm having for, like, I want to be here, but I don't see it to get it with you. I want to lock shields next to you and go, keep away from our families. But I don't know which direction to point, because I don't see the bad guy. But I will fight alongside next to you
at this point, I think
don't see
it's just going to have to be left to a difference of belief, of moral understanding, because if it's my assertion is and has been that the outliers that are in that overlap area, where I would view that and say, that's not good. But do I have a right to make that decision for someone else in their experience, in their life that I know nothing about? I have no idea about the nuances of the decision, the painstaking amounts of like, are there young kids that are just like, holy crap, I don't want to get in trouble with my parents, go have an abortion? Hell fucking yeah, of course there are. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
And for my part, with regard to education, like, I'm working with a young guy right now, 21. I'm in the emotion coaching work. It is a big deal for me to perpetuate that connection and continue working with younger and younger guys to get the education about consent, about sexuality, about prevention, about responsibility. I think that's very, very important. And I think it is...
I'm with you. Sounds
people
good.
in our
Trained
situation who are
there.
trying to educate and continue to put out the challenges, the issues, the reality of the situation, that you are too young to you have this power to create life and you don't understand how to use it, or you don't understand the implications of the rest of your life. And I happen to believe that a woman has a right to make that decision for herself, an uneducated one or an educated one, because in taking that ability away from anyone who would do it from a place of uneducation or lack of education, and again, I don't have a stat, but every experience I've ever had with any person I've talked to, or there's an inclination of any story anywhere, it has always come from a place of challenge, of struggle, of checking in with, your own moral fortitude. And is this the right thing to do? Is it not the right thing to do? There are conversations with the partner. Like, that is the part that I think is worth the acknowledgement for the foundational ability to make a choice for yourself. That is why I'm arguing the point. Are there people doing horrible things and abusing systems? There always are. Yes, absolutely. Do I think enough of that is happening to merit limiting everyone else who is being as responsible as they can and making the best decisions, even though they might be like the lesser of two evils in a lot of situations? Yes. I think the right to have that decision should be preserved despite the people that are not doing it well.
I'm with you. Right now, it looks like they can still do that. It's just the line that's the argument.
Well, and
because they can do it within 6 weeks or within 7 weeks, they can still do it. So that no one's taking anybody's right.
That's not just a talking point. There's a legitimate thing that you don't. So many women don't know they're pregnant that early. They just don't, and that's not okay, just a talking point.
But again, Chris, the argument then would be, well, it's too soon. The actual line should be week 14.
Well, and
like that's the only that's where this is so confusing. Is like, well, then where should the line be so we can all go, okay, that's
I,
like
as
a
human being
number.
Who cares about people, am willing to have that conversation. But that's not happening everywhere, and that's the point. So
no, it's not. That's why I'm trying to have it with you. I'm like, so what's the line then? You said week 28. I'm like, I think that's too late for me. So then is there a compromise line? Because at week 28, we can be picking names.
Yeah, and I don't know anyone who's reached that point that wasn't.
Line, so, right. And so that's where I'm like, that's pretty late in the game. So is there a sooner level that makes more sense here that doesn't put the mom in full, like, second to third trimester? Is there a safer way? Or maybe wouldn't it make more sense if it's your body, your choice, be more responsible with it? So that way you can check more, like, better pregnancy tests, like a more effective or more efficient way for girls to be able to go, like, I can check, my hormones or pregnancy much sooner. Because if they could have pregnancy test that can tell within a much shorter period of time, then if you're responsible enough to be having unprotected sex, you should be responsible enough to check to see if you're pregnant or sooner. Like, more effective ways. Wouldn't, if she's doing my body, my choice, be responsible with your body?
Well, who's
like,
defining?
Before we go, like, let's do abortion.
So, but you're arguing the point. Who's defining responsibility?
Shouldn't women? Right? Well, let's just make it so it's your perfect world, and boys don't have an opinion. Girls regulate girls. So then, what would be the consensus for girls to go? Hey, ladies, we have to come to an agreement here. Where can the ladies go? Let's find a solution instead of we're just emotional. Because if the ladies have to come up with the solution, if it's not our call, if our Y chromosome eliminates us from responsibility, even though it's our kids, let's just eliminate us from the equation. Shouldn't there be a rally of women who go, where's the line, ladies? Shouldn't women do this then? Shouldn't there be like the coalition of sound thinkers of women who go, let's try and find the best thing for the child, for the family, and for the woman. Let's try and see where's the win for all. Ladies, yeah. We are responsible for this. And so by that notion, if women are upset about this, it just means they're not good at doing this. Wouldn't this be like the responsibility is on you, ladies? What is the counter argument to say this is the right way to do it?
So
because
if the responsibility,
that's why it's confusing, is it's not like week 14, guys, you're wrong.
If the responsibility is on the ladies, then let it be on the ladies and let them make the decision. That's the argument.
And this is where it's not going well. Could you tell me what the women have agreed is the line where it's like it's past week 28, that's a little reckless, or by week 15, now we're going too far, ladies? Where have the ladies who want abortions agreed this is at least the line we're going a little into just grinding up a kid that would be self-sustaining? Where's the line?
I haven't talked to all the ladies
have agreed on. Well, shouldn't there be the ones who are angry? Shouldn't they be week 17? Week 17. Shouldn't there be like, we know what we want instead of just we can do whatever we want because that's the side you said doesn't work. It's too extreme versus too extreme. So what is the middle? And the ladies who like, it's our choice. Shouldn't they have an agreement amongst ladies for humanity? Like, shouldn't they have a humane answer? I'm trying to be fair and just go, if the logic guys are out of it. We can't have men who can't be logical or rational. That's out of the equation. It's only ladies who can do that. And they have to have the logical, rational, structured answer. So shouldn't they have that so we can go, yeah, I agree. The ladies got this shit. They got it. Well, I don't know what the answer is, though, because it just seems like I'm mad. But I don't see the boogeyman. So I don't know what the number is. And if the argument is week 7's too early, it needs to be week 13. I'm like, good argument. Move the line back. That's the debate. Fair enough. Week 7, too early. We need better pregnancy detection so that the girls can have a choice before it starts affecting their body negatively. Good. Protect the girls. Fair enough. I hear the argument. Makes sense. Week 14 is correct because of this. After week 14, it's the responsibility of the parents to take care of this child. You guys should have been more responsible with your body, your choices. Like, there's got to be a societal idea that, like, there's a middle ground. The whole topic is fucked. Just, like, I don't see a win. There's no win. So it's like, what's the most humane lose is really the only win here. It's what's the most humane loss we can do.
And I know you don't like it, and you keep keep asking the question. My humane approach is to allow the woman to make the choice. That's what it is. And
so what did they pick then? What are they saying? You live in a home with a woman who would be more feminist. What is her concept of? Well, here's the line, guys. This is why do they not get it? Me as a woman, the line should be right here. Is she able to go like, what are you guys talking about? It's week 14, you guys. That's it.
No, her contention is why are there a bunch of men sitting around talking about my body and not letting me handle it because it's my body
question.
And they don't need to have an opinion.
So then this is why there's no opinion. What is her right answer? Not what is she not like? That's where there's an issue. It's I'm mad at stuff, not I have a better way. What's the better way? So that way we go like, guys, why didn't you listen to her? She had a better way. Like, what's the better way? Because instead of just being, I'm hateful, be like, I'm solution minded. What's the better way? So I can go like, that's a good fucking point, man. I'm with her on that one for sure.
Can I give you?
Because I want to be with her. Again, I'm not against. I'm trying to. Yeah, what's her line? Like, this is where abortion should be up to week, whatever.
I've never asked her that question. Like, what week, baby? What week do you think it should happen or shouldn't happen? Because we are both in agreement.
That's important.
And you know what? I'll ask her after this interview. But the reason why I've never asked her.
Yeah, that's a pretty important thing.
Is because that then assumes that there needs to be women can't do it on their own. We have to step in and do it with or for them. And
why did you add that? I just asked her where her line is. Like that, for a responsible grown adult, they should be able to say, if I'm going to take a life, it's at this line. Like if they should be in charge of when to kill, it's at this point. And that would for me would be like, if she's the one who should be in charge, shouldn't she be at least mildly rationally reasonable about how she does it?
Yeah.
Like for me to follow a leader, I would need competency. So if I ask a competency question and there isn't a competent answer, hard to follow. So if I said, well, what's the point where, like, if Texas is doing it wrong and week 7 is too early, because they can still have an abortion. They can still have it.
Yeah.
Contraceptively. That's not taken away. You can still do it. So no rights are gone. It's just they made a line at 7. And she's like, that's wrong. It should be 12. I'm like, why 12? Because maybe you're right. Why 12? But if she's like, no, we shouldn't have any lines because I'm emotional, I'd be like, low competency, doesn't know the answer. Let's stick with 7. This one scares the shit out of me. Like, that wouldn't be a rational answer. But if she was like, here's all the reasons why week 14 is the most correct, it's fucked both ways, but is the most humane for the mother, it's the most humane procedure to remove the child, and, you know, both parents should consent, and week 14 is the cutoff, otherwise both parents are responsible for the life they've created. Like, I'm like, okay, that's very well thought out. Good job, hon. You figured it out. I got it. Let's try and fight for the middle ground of it's fucked both ways, but good answer.
If this was a conversation between her and I about that, then sure. And I'm not going to speak for her because I don't do that.
But that would be something that everybody can get behind because now we're uniting the country under a rational objective.
But also the assumption
there's nothing to be upset about. It's like, let's just do it the better way.
And I'm willing to have. I'm literally having the conversation right now. That's why I'm willing to talk about it. And like I said, I'm
not against you. I'm like, let's just do it in a very rational way.
Yeah, and I do again. I'm going back to the shoulds. It should be an all-encompassing conversation. To say there's no emotion about it is like that's just impossible. Of course, there's emotion about it. There's emotion about everything, but should decisions be made from a purely emotional standpoint? Of course not. There has to be logic and rational thought and understanding of the reality of a situation. Absolutely. But going back to what I was saying, if I am not going to put words in her mouth, and I can only guess that her answer would be something like, I don't owe you that explanation because it's my decision to make. I'm going to talk about it with my husband and my family, and we're going to make the best decision we can in the situation. And is your argument then that that's not good enough because there are way too many people who are just going to like freewheel it and not give a fuck, and that's not acceptable? Is that the argument? So there has to be legislation?
Well, no answer isn't an answer. Well, I mean, in this one, you said week 28's fucked. After that's fucked up. You say shouldn't be allowed to do that. So you said there should be legislation after week 28. So yeah, there should be at some point.
Belief, yes.
A legislation like, hey, we're right. So I'm with you. Like, okay, the issue again, this is where if the person you're asking for, like, you think week 28, and I think week 7. And she's like, you're both wrong. It's week 14. Like, oh, okay. Why do you say that? She's like, because the way the woman's body develops and how we go through this, because of that, it shouldn't be done after this point, because that would put us at risk for multiple issues that are complicated after week 14. So it needs to be done before that. Both of you guys don't understand. We're like, okay, I'm with that. But if you say week 28 and I say week 7, and I'm like, here's why week 7, because I don't want the girl to be like all messed up because the baby's already fully developed. And you're like, week 28, because I don't think it's got a soul yet until then. And you're like, okay, cool. We both are at 2 different spots.
Yep.
We both have our reasons why. I'm like, okay. And if she says, well, I should be the one who calls the shots. And we're like, well, what do you think? And she's like, I shouldn't have to tell you. And I'm like, oh,
okay.
That's not the best answer.
Let me elaborate on that then, because now, like, after that last time you said it, I realized something landed for me. Okay. The original Roe v. Wade decision was based on the idea that it should be the woman's decision because of all these complications. Obviously, there's way more to it than that, but a generalization of that.
Sure.
Then ever since I believe it is the late 70s, but definitely in the 80s, abortion itself became a much more politicized issue. It wasn't really one before that. Not that it wasn't at all, it just wasn't as nearly as big as it is now. And ironically enough, the Jewish community, the evangelical Christian community, either had no say on the matter or were actually for it. But as soon as it started to become politicized, then things started changing. Regardless of that.
Well, there were also very specific community attacks for this too. And this is where I would be for the Black community, is that the abortion pushes were very heavily pushed in Black communities. And so there was there's more Black deaths from Planned Parenthood than gang violence. And you can look that shit up. Like, it was pushed into poverty communities. And so that's where it got really messed up, as it started attacking culture.
Well, and and again,
so I'm with you. These things started escalating. Things started going up and up.
Sure. So ever since then, that was considered a win to the responsible woman's right to choose her own situation, right? We could still argue there are people not acting responsibly, and I grant that for sure.
There was not, for sure.
The need, and this was the thing that landed, the realization that hit me. The reason I believe the emotion, the anger specifically, that's coming now is because the politicalization of that issue has amped it back up to become a political issue, a religious issue, instead of a medical one where responsible women can actually...
Wouldn't your issue then be like, because this isn't like the real laws aren't this is a social media issue then. This is a news outlet issue then, because there isn't actual truth. It's just points of view you should be scared of that aren't real. And so wouldn't this be more of a social issue than a medical issue?
There's certainly an argument there.
The actual danger doesn't exist. So like the social panic over something that doesn't exist is the part, as a human behavior expert, I'm like, that doesn't exist. Why is everybody freaking out and trying to make a law for a law that doesn't exist? Like, what are we fighting for? Because it doesn't exist.
Because
that's where, like, that doesn't make sense.
Forward,
like, I want to be able to say it makes sense, but it's a social issue.
Because the emotional issue is what it was legislated on. Like, we as religious viewing people or we believe that this is wrong, so we're going to legislate it from that perspective versus from a more, as you're arguing, logical medical perspective of the reason this has to be here is because during this time there are these complications and each person is different, and so we have to allow for those nuances, blah 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 blah. Whereas so much of the legislation
let's go into the religious
just,
people.
This is what it is.
For the religious people who say no abortion's ever pro-life, if they were going to make a working system, it has to be able to account for all of the babies that are unwanted. That would make sense. Like, okay, we're pro-life. Now, what about the people who are alive? Like, let's make sure we take care of them, right?
Absolutely.
So with that, now the issue is if they're trying to save lives, remember, and this is where the people who are religiously radical also are not sound of mind. So just so you know, I'm going to call it out. Having an opinion of what you believe is right or wrong is fine. Jesus himself, Matthew 7:1, goes, don't judge others unless you want to be judged yourself. It's not your job to do grand judgment. So that's why I said, acknowledge that you are removing the human life from your body. Just acknowledge it. Now, all the religious fanatics are like, they did acknowledge it. What else do I fucking want? They're the ones who got to talk to big guns later. It's not my department to do grand judgment of who's going to heaven and hell. That's not my department. I'm pretty sure God will figure it out. Let him sort it out. You can't make that call based on something that's not your department. So at least acknowledge, I'm doing that. I'll take it up with big guns when I get there. And they go like, well, our religious shit doesn't matter. We can't, it's not our department.
Yeah,
so I'm with you,
happen,
religious
right?
fanatics. But, well, again, this is fanatical. And so anybody fanatical on any side is not the reasonable party, which is why it's important to have a reasonable party against the fanatical emotions. And so if someone says, no abortions ever, let the mother die, you're like, okay, you're a little extreme. That's not a baseline. What about you? We should be able to kill babies even after they're born. I'm like, that's fucking crazy. That's too far. So where's our line that goes like, hey, I'm killing a baby, but it's at least before it's got fingernails. I'm like, it's fucked both ways, but okay. You know, like you take it up with God because it's not my department, but I don't agree with it, but it's not my atonement or deal to work with. So fuck. That's crazy. Life is wild. Like, what's the middle here? Because it can't be kill a 2-year-old and it can't be everyone dies and have to have all these unwanted kids. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's always the debate that I've ever seen is where in the middle, because that's where we can't agree. And so if the ladies, it's their call, ladies agree, where's the line at? So that way we can go, we all agreed this is the middle. This is crazy. This is crazy. This is the least crazy of both crazies. That's our best answer. That's the best we can do. Like, that makes sense to me. I'm like, good job, ladies. Fucking, it's all nuts, but okay. But to say like, well, we can pick anywhere between because if we don't have to explain ourselves. I'm like, that's a terrifying answer because you can go one notch away from the nutcases and somehow you're still good. Nope. Like, that wouldn't work either, especially as a dad. As a father, as a dad, and as half of the equation to make this situation, and the other half who has to take care of the kid when they're born, I think that this stage should be a partnership. You should have both parents consent, like we both want to do this. We'll both take it up with big guns upstairs later by whatever week is agreed upon by the women, 14, 12, 8, whatever. I don't care. Just call shit what it is. It's all fucked. We'll take it up with God when we get there. We got to make our best choices while we're here because free will is the game. Fuck. That's it. That's kind of where I'm at with this. It's not really a win. Everybody loses. It's always a lose. Nobody wins.
And that's
Everyone
why
loses.
That's
even,
why
even the middle is a loss.
Well, yeah, and it's for me. Because again, I'm not going to speak for any woman I know.
I will. I'll team up. I'll be like, ladies, what do you think? Hey, guys, what do you think?
Oh no,
it's a team effort. It's all
I'm not going to speak for them. I mean, I'll speak with them. I'll speak with them all day. But
so have your opinion and say mine's at 28 and mine's at 12. Like, okay, cool. Let's meet in the middle. Like, I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think it's crazy to have the conversation. Absolutely not. Once again, that's why we're having it.
Sure. Yeah.
And
if it's the lady's choice, I really do feel like it's their responsibility to go like, we know our number.
And I'm sure
that would be very sane to me. Good. That would be cool. And so then what are we shaving our heads for and getting crazy? We can go like, it's week 14. Like, shouldn't that be the thing? Is it's week 14, not kill men or something? Like, not men are the worst. Shouldn't it be week 14?
Well, and I'm not going to speak for anyone saying that. Do I think, like just assuming that all men are horrible and, you know, that level of vitriol toward men, yeah, that's just as bad and dangerous as vitriol towards women and assuming that they can't make decisions they should have. I don't disagree with that at all.
Hate group. Yeah.
And I understand though the women coming from a place of you can't do this because you're a woman. You can't do this because you're a woman. You can't do this because you're a woman. Sucks that you ended up with the biological equivalent of your body getting ravaged by a parasite, because that's literally what it is until it reaches viability. It, in the sense of like,
I don't think I ever called babies parasites.
No, I'm saying
that's a weird thing. Like as a dad, to say your babies are parasites. I don't agree with that.
As an entity,
like
as
symbiotic.
Biological,
I can see what you're saying.
No, but that's what I'm saying. They're not. It's not a symbiotic relationship.
It doesn't mean
parasitic.
It doesn't mean harm to the mother.
No, I'm not.
But it's very healthy.
Their bone density goes down. They lose. Now I'm losing my terminology. Well, the hormone situation with regard.
If you're saying that the hormones and the bone density, listen, for a woman to be able to make a human being is a fucking miracle of life, and to call it a negative, I probably wouldn't join you in this one because. Then I don't know why we would call it a parasitic and.
I'm saying
it's parasitic. It hurts your bones and messes you all up. I'm like, oh no.
Yes, and women still
it's the
choose
most
to do it.
majestic thing a woman can do with her man. Yeah.
Yes,
it's amazing.
So it is amazing. It's also horrifying and difficult and painful and tragic and overwhelming, right? So simply acknowledging that from a scientific perspective, the definition of parasite, a baby falls under that definition with regard to the resources it pulls from the mother's body at her detriment. That's just a fact. I'm not saying babies are parasites, not at all. I'm acknowledging the fact that
I'm with you on words matter. I probably won't call anybody's kid a parasite, even if you have a definition for it. I don't agree on the definition. That's just
I'm speaking biologically, not
I won't call
humanly.
your babies parasites. I won't do.
No, my children are not parasites. I'm speaking
humanly. I don't call you. I won't. Yeah, if your wife was pregnant big, she's got a parasite until week 28. Like I wouldn't say that. Like it's congratulations. I'm very happy for you too.
Of course, you guys I'm not going to walk up to a woman and say, "Hey, how's that parasite doing inside you?" No.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't use the Emoto water experiment in this way to call your baby parasitic. I understand the symbiosis to it, but that's part of the miracle of it, not necessarily the negative of it. So. In this case, like that's where the words would matter for me. So
and do I think
agree with that.
Okay. And I think we both agree that it's not something to like throw out there as, oh, this is regardless. I'm not going to go back and forth because it's the fact that
I don't call them parasites. That's just me. You can call them that if you want. I just won't agree to call them that. I think in my opinion, as a man, a woman who would say, I will have the child, then put your body through the hard things because it is a miracle of it. We both have children.
Yes.
For our wife to say, I will go through the bearing of childbirth for my husband and my family, I feel like is the highest honor a woman can do. That's my opinion. It is the highest honor a woman can do is have a man's baby. It is the highest sacrifice. It's the highest commitment. It's the highest, like my body is different from now on after this. It's the highest show of love, compassion, and fortitude and commitment that I can even imagine.
It's
the highest one. Right next to the next one would be I will fucking die for you is the next one. That's the next one in. One is I would live for you and I will create life with you. Mm-hmm. The next one is I would fight to the death to keep you safe. I would sacrifice my existence to make sure you can continue yours. That's the next one up. So anybody who goes like, this is a fuck scenario and these ladies need to get rid of these parasites, I'm like, I probably wouldn't go that route with it. It's probably for me one of the highest honors that a woman could ever do for a man. And so be selective again, ladies. That's where I would say is, ladies, get your hypergamy in check and be selective with your mates to have good, healthy families instead of doing a sleep around with everybody and now I got to do abortions. I just probably would say if it's your body, your choice, make better choices. That's where I would lean. Free will, have it. But there's consequences to poor choices. Whether you do something stupid or you do something smart, it ends up going a direction.
And that's your opinion to have. Absolutely. And once again,
I see it.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about the country we live in, right? Not everyone has to agree.
I don't know what the disagreement is. Like, where you're like, nah, they're parasites and let them kill them all. Like, I'm like, all right.
I didn't say that at all.
What week?
I'm saying, I'm
What week,
acknowledging the
then?
fact. And if you're coming at me saying that I'm saying that babies should be viewed as
I'm
parasites,
not saying you're saying.
not at all.
Chris,
Not at all.
I'm not doing any straw man argument with you. I'm not saying you said when you didn't say it. It's all recorded, so I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the concept of even calling it that is where I'm like, I don't know if it's beneficial for like families to even have that belief system.
I didn't say it was beneficial.
Men of influence, it is. Yeah.
I didn't say it was a beneficial thing
You're a man
to
of
tout.
influence.
I'm acknowledging the reality of the biology. That's it. And I believe we need to look at everything. Again, not just our feelings. I feel that it's the greatest honor that a woman could ever have. Not every woman feels that way.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just telling you like a man opinion and not a boy opinion.
And
that's
hear you.
my opinion. Like, and that's okay.
And I hear that opinion.
And again, this is like, that's just where my line. That's my line.
And I would assume that your wife is with you in that thought process, because that's why another reason you're together, because you mesh with those beliefs and that view of things. And I have that with my wife.
We're
as well.
in our 40s. We're in our 40s, and if we had some miracle baby happen where she got pregnant again, like, there's gonna be a weird retirement, but I'm gonna be happy to be old pop again. Like, I'm not. We got our youngest is 14 at this point, and so we're not looking forward to starting over again. But
have to go way
God
back.
willed it, and now we got that. All right, I guess we're starting over. I don't want to do it, but would we? I would. Yeah, do it again.
Yeah,
and
I get that.
It's just one of those things where is it ideal? No. Is it inconvenient? Is all get up? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, me wrestling around with a kid in my 50s is going to be very different than my 20s and 30s. I'll tell you right now, nature loves young parents. So, like, that's going to be tougher. I don't want to do it, but would I? Yeah, I would. And so that's just the choice for our family.
And I can say, if that happened with, because I got a vasectomy, because we both agreed that we're done. Was there an interest in, was it 100%? Oh yeah, just never. No, we still talk about, like, what if we did have another one? You know what? I thought it might've been a boy because we already had two girls. I'm feeling a boy vibe if we went ahead again. And we both agreed. It was like, yeah, we both think it probably would be that. And I can say with complete honesty that if something like that did happen, because it's not 100% with vasectomies either. It's a hell of a lot more than any other contraception, but it's not 100. So could it happen? Sure. Would I take that on? Yes. Would I definitively take that on? Would I make that decision right now before it happens? I would say no. That would be a conversation with my wife when it happens. Would I be willing to take that on?
It's a big life change.
Yeah. Would I be willing to take that on? If it deemed so, yes.
Yeah, that part. I'm like, badass, dude. That's awesome, man. Like, it's a real conversation. I'm already with you on, like, would I be willing? Yeah, I would do it. Like, would I be like an absolute conversation? We got wives. We already know it is.
Yeah, so of course.
I totally agree with you on that one. All right. We quadruple tapped this dead horse. So let's do something cool. Okay, so you work with men and I work with men. Let's shift it over to the guys. Let's shift it over to, like, the guys that you work with and the guys I work with. And, like, being able to say, these are some of the biggest problems that we both see our guys are running into. And then, like, how are you helping out your guys? And then how I help out the guys and see if we can make our sides just stronger to help the guys who are struggling. Because, like, while the women are fighting for their rights on one thing, guys are getting fucking annihilated right now. Like, I don't know if you're watching suicide rates and you're watching what's going on, or even working with any young guys, because you see you got 21-year-old. I got everything from 15 and up. Like, it's a really tough world for these young guys because it's way too much information and they don't have the processors or mentors to process it. What are some things in your groups that you're like, our guys are getting pounded right now that you're seeing?
Well,
and it doesn't have to be, like, just any topic. It'll be fun.
Yeah, no, and I do get a lot of questions, not necessarily questions, but it's brought up. Like the porn issue is obviously a big one, especially because of how we are now with the internet and social media compared to how we were 20 years ago. Meeting people is a very different thing now. So. And to be honest, the biggest thing that I run into, because and I realized the last time we didn't actually even get into what I specifically help guys with. And just to put a button on it, it's emotional regulation and emotional reactions. That is my focus. So like understanding how to recognize you're being triggered by something, how to separate your emotion from the actions you feel compelled to take, how to take that pause, collect yourself, regulate, and then have a conversation about it or leave the situation, whatever it happens to be. But using those skills instead of just letting that wave of emotion hit you and whatever happens. So that's the majority of
like
what I focus on.
Getting triggered and going into a reaction, right?
Right.
Cool.
Right.
So like I'd rather keep it in your field than in your wheelhouse, because like pornography is an emotional regulation, but arguing with your person sure is.
Oh, for sure.
And so like that one would be like, how are you fighting with people that you love?
Yeah.
I'm definitely into that, because relationships right now, both sides are really having a hard time figuring out how to communicate. And if that's your wheelhouse, I'd love to hear some of your best practices. If like, you know, because we have a lot of spouses that are not willing spouses, you know, and whenever I work with couples, whether it's the guy or the girl, there's always one who's like, well, when they do it, fine, I'll do it. You know, there's always one who's like, just not willing to budge, and somebody who's got to go first. And so like, what are you doing when you're helping out somebody who's like, I want to save this, but I don't have the tools? Like, what's some tricks that you go like, buddy, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this in a way that's not working. Like, let's say they're arguing a lot.
Yeah. And I will say, and I'll use an example specifically that popped up when you mentioned that. I had this guy who, his wife and he are separated and they're co-parenting. And there's a lot of like, you know, she wants him to they're not together anymore. Right. So she wants to have that aspect of it, but then she still wants him to come in and do the dad stuff, according to like her way of doing things. And he's like, whoa. If, you know, either I'm with you and we're doing this, or we're not, and I'm doing it my way, you're doing it yours, and we can collaborate, but you can't have both. Sure. Right. So, the big thing that first of all, it's obviously self first and then everything else. So, the biggest thing is getting him to realize in his interactions with her, how he's showing up, what is coming up for him when she speaks to him, and how he can understand and manage that. So I'm not jumping into, we're going to talk about how the conversation should go. No, we're not even there yet. Let's deal with how you're receiving the information, what emotions come up for you, how you're regulating yourself, and whether that's helping or hindering the situation. Once then you get a little more skill under your belt, then we can get into the, you know, how to talk.
What would be a skill for him that you're like, hey buddy, here's a skill you need to practice. Like, it's not about like him or her, but you're missing this tool. Like you need a screwdriver, and I see you in here with your hammer, and not everything is hammer, buddy. You need screwdriver.
Absolutely.
How do you teach them, like, you're missing this tool? You're missing this tool. What would be one of the tools to help him not lose his mind or get triggered or keep regulation? What would a tool that you think, buddy?
The big foundational,
don't have that tool.
Yeah, absolutely. The big foundational program I have is called Hero Training. It's acronym. It stands for Happening, Experience, Response, and Opportunity. And this is the foundational process that I start guys out with. That basically something happens. This is in and of itself meaningless. It doesn't mean something to you or anyone involved, but you provide the meaning. So allow what happened to happen, and then we will compartmentalize what happens next. So something happens, that's it, period.
Okay, so in this case, the happen is she's yelling at him to do it her way, even though they're not together. That's happening, right?
Sure, but I would go even more specific than that.
Happen. Like, she's doing the thing, and he's like, okay.
Yeah, the more specific version, though, I would go in would be a specific situation, not just that general idea. Because if it's too general, especially in the beginning, then in my experience, there's a lot of confusion. It's like, wait, what? How do I handle this situation? Well, that's a different situation, even though it's under the same umbrella of that issue. So it would be...
Okay, well make the situation so I can, like, follow. Like, give me, like, a specific one. Like, this is how I would use the tool, so I can not...
Let's say she walks in and says, hey, I need you to go pick up our child because I have this thing. Oh, well, I can't do that. I have this thing and you didn't contact me before. So the instruction based on hero training in that situation would be, okay. And of course he's coming to me after and explaining all of this after the fact. So there's nothing I can coach him through in the moment for the actual conversation. So It would then be, okay, what happened? Tell me. Well, she did this because, no, because. What happened? So I get him to understand that how to describe the situation without the emotion, without what it means, just the situation. Then he can separate the situation from his emotion about it and address the emotion itself and prepare for future situations instead of blasting the retro emotion back at the situation and just getting lost in his head.
Okay, so he has to do what would be like an objective perspective and just call it what it is. We don't make it bigger than it is.
Yeah.
And then prepare for these in the future. All right, so what would be a preparation? Like, okay, now that you know that they do this, here's what you do to,
Well, and
prepare.
again, starting with him, because we're not getting into their relationship yet. It's his relationship with himself. So that happens. What?
Yeah.
That happens. What happens to you? Oh, well, I get angry. Okay. Well, how does that happen? Oh, well, I just start doing this. No, not what you do. That's a response, or technically it's a reaction. So we're trying to get to response here. So what happens? How do you know you feel angry? What do you feel in your body? What do the sensations feel like? How long does it last? Where does it move? What does your physical body do in response to the emotion you say you're feeling? And can you label the emotion under the anger? Are you just feeling angry, or are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling disrespected? Are you feeling, well, disrespect is not a feeling, but you know what I mean. So like, I'm a big with the emotion wheel for that reason.
Yeah, I've got it in here.
Understanding.
I've got it.
Okay. So once you can feel what you're feeling, recognize that the emotional process itself doesn't last all that long. It's the story we create in our mind that perpetuates that emotional state. So what happens, certainly in my experience, you just get stuck in this, whatever you're feeling, and you perpetuate the story, and then you're stuck there for hours, days, or weeks, and you don't understand why you can't change it, because you yourself are perpetuating the issue. You're not addressing what caused it. You're simply still upset about feeling how you're feeling. So being able to say, okay, I'm feeling anger. I feel it in my chest. I feel it. I clench my fists or my jaw automatically. I notice that when I think of that. Then I feel compelled to throw something, to hit something, to yell at her, to whatever it happens to be. Okay, got it. So then, and story is big for me, because as soon as you start getting into story, and let's be honest, we tend just, again, psychologically to skew negative from a what if perspective, because we're programmed to view the negative to protect ourselves and say, I don't like that. I don't want to go over there. Okay. And what if, anxiety, right? So once you have an understanding of how your body's physical reactions connect to what you're labeling as emotion, then you can focus on moving through the emotional experience to a place of rational logic. Then you can deal with the issue. Because, again, biologically, you can't deal with something logically when you're emotional, because that's two different parts of the brain. So the goal is not to just wait until you have no emotion. It's to get out of the emotional reaction and get into an amount of emotion that allows you to get into logical, rational response instead of emotional reaction. When you can do that,
sure,
you are in a much more powerful position, because you can maintain your calm and address, I consider that a superpower, to maintain your calm in front of someone else who's heightened emotionally. And I think that is a foundational benefit to this work, especially as a man. Because I think like, there's this pretense that a lot of guys have of, oh, well, yeah, I don't, I just stand there and don't say anything. Yeah, but you're seething behind your eyes. Like, it's not that you're not emotional. It's that you're not throwing things or.
That's freezing.
What's that?
Freezing is a trigger response too. Though.
No, I said seething.
Freezing is a trigger response. But they're not. They may not be angry because they're frozen, and so they may be
sure, yeah,
overwhelmed.
like freeze.
And so I remember,
fight,
like,
freeze,
response,
or
fight,
fawn.
Fight,
yeah,
freeze, fawn.
Absolutely. So it's
and so it seems like the experience is which trigger did I get triggered by?
Sure, and
like what's my trigger system? Because that's when we go through that. It's like I, for example, am a deny, which goes into like the flight. I don't want to talk about this shit.
Yeah.
Until we are talking about this, I'm like, okay, then we're gonna fucking talk about it. And then it goes into fight, and then I don't go into fawn or freeze. I go into extra fight, and then once it goes into super fight, I go, fuck this, I'm out of here, and I go into flight again. So mine is flight, fight, fight, flight. It's like I don't want to get into it. Oh, you want to get into it? We'll really get into it. Well, then fuck this, I'm out. Like, that was my old system. Like, that system it was obviously.
I was going to say, you don't do that now, do you?
But I knew myself well enough. No, it wasn't a working system, and so I had to remove it. But that was my default system. Growing up in a hostile environment, it would just be aggression totally because I didn't have the option. I didn't have the option for fawning. I grew up in a fucking hellhole, so it didn't work like that. So I didn't have the option to try to make somebody happy, and I did not have the option to freeze or I'd be killed. So I didn't have that. And so this is where those were my responses. And so teaching the guy his responding versus reacting is to avoid your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So I'm with you. That's the experience.
Okay. Yes.
Is response. That's what you're talking about. Like, go from experience to response. And so that's the training, is understanding, catch what's going on with you so you can respond instead of react. And then opportunity. How do I do okay, now I'm catching that she's fucking losing her shit and making demands. I'm not going to go with it. I'm going to hold the line here and go, okay, I see what you're doing. What's the opportunity? How do I do that?
Okay. So just to backtrack just for a sec, happening is just something happening. Experience is, I'd break it down into 4 categories: thoughts and feelings, body sensations, meaning and morality, and story. Then phase 3 is response, which is the physical act of responding. And the other part of that is I get into the idea of the watcher, your higher self looking at what's happening. In the sense of the part of you that's noticing you're angry isn't angry, but that's a little more in depth. Then the opportunity is after the situation. After the situation is over, or you've taken a break, whatever it happens to be, from the conversation or the fight, if you will. And then I have 3 categories in opportunity: the objective truth, assess and adjust your responses, and how do you want to feel.
Got it. I got a question for the experience itself then. Okay, so now he's done this shit, and she comes in hot.
Yeah.
She says, pick up the kid, I've got a thing going on. And like, she just comes in and does that. How does he use this system then to go like, no? Like, what does he do? Like, how does he...
Well, and
like, he's like, there was no agreement here. There's no communication here. You just came in and made a demand. So what's he do?
Yeah, it's the acknowledgement that, okay, number one, you were not informed, right? So the expectation is void, basically, because you're not only not in the relationship anymore, this isn't a beneficial way to talk to me regardless, right? So it's setting boundaries regardless of the situation, making sure that, and this is the lack of story part as well, because you're stuck in your story in your head. You're not actually listening so you can respond accordingly because you're so focused on what's going on with you. So once you have all of this process down, then it's like, okay, that happened. Whoo, yep, feeling that because of it. Oh, and here comes the story, but that's not something I need to get into right now. Granted, there can also be a question from, okay, I'm getting this story in my head. I need clarity from you. Are you saying this, and this? Then you're getting, and obviously answering or asking questions is the way to get any clarity. So, okay, you're coming at me with this situation. I'm going to ask you a series of questions about what you just did to hopefully get you to realize what you're asking.
That's an ex-wife, though. She's probably not going to be like, yes, please, give me a questionnaire.
Well, yeah, no, of course not. But then
there's a reason they're divorced. So she's probably not going to be the reasonable party. She's coming in with a demand and control. So she probably won't be like, yes, please, 20 questions.
No, of course not.
So what do you do when she's like, no, take the kid. What are you arguing with me for? Like, remember, she's heated.
Yeah.
So, like, how's he supposed to do this? Like, because right now it's like he's got to catch his story and he's got to be able to catch his triggers on this and then ask questions.
Yeah. So
I want to make sure, like, hey, dude, she's losing her shit, man. She's telling you what to do.
So
how does he go, like, hey, this is the right way to handle this?
So obviously, if it's like a safety of a child issue, then I would address that first.
No, it's
no, and I mean, like, hey, you need to go pick up the kid. Or I have a scheduling thing, and I don't care that you didn't know about it. You know, blah blah blah. Yeah. Okay. So that being out of the
for sure.
So if that's the case, then it's acknowledging a boundary, and sticking to it first of all. Or if this is how this is going to be, I'm walking away from this situation, and we can talk about it later. Or there's.
So that would be like a boundary.
Well, it's always boundary. Yeah.
Like,
so
it's a boundary. Like, if you don't talk to me, cool. Well, then I'm walking away.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly.
How does that address what we do with the kid?
Well, and that's the next step in, like, that's a very specific situation for.
I just want to make, because I really am not trying to, like,
no, and
I want to be like,
I am working, as I said, my focus is on teaching men that process, and if I can help with the situations where they implement that process, I'll do my best. But my goal is to give them the tools to be able to have a better understanding of their own experience so that they can react or respond better than simply mindlessly reacting. That is my foundational goal with everything that I'm doing.
With you. No, I'm with you there, but again, that's only like the beginning of the tool. So, like, all right, I'm not freaking out, but now what do I do? Like, all right, she came in hot. You got to go get the kids. I'm like, why do I have to get the kids? Because I got a meeting I didn't tell you about. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a meeting I didn't tell you about because that wasn't part of our agreement.
Sure.
What do I do? I'm being calm still, and I'm asking questions. She said, just because. She's like, because go get the fucking kids. Because what the fuck? And you're like, oh, you're going to attack me and start making demands. Now I see that she's making a demand, walking in the door. I'm calm. I'm cool. What do I do now?
My coaching for him in that situation would be, number one, you can't control what she's doing. All you can do is control yourself, right? So that being the case, if you are remaining calm, using your tools, and you lay out what you're going to do. It's like a speech. You say what you're going to say, you say it, and then you say what you said. I'm going to say this to you, or I'm going to ask you this. And if we can have a conversation about it, then I'm willing to sit here and listen. But if you're just going to continue yelling at me, I'm going to go back to my meeting and you can figure this out. But if you want my help, this is how we're going to do it.
What I'm going to do is I want to just to help you, because, like, I want to make sure, like, if this is a good system and the guys can use this, I want to make it so, like, they can do it. So I'll be the not fun ex-wife. I'll be that. But I am going to, there's a manageable way that, like, I'm not unconsolable, so I won't be an impossible person, okay? So I'll be like the control freak. I don't want to hear your bullshit. We've got a lot of past, and I don't fucking like you, ex-wife. And I'm going to tell you how things should run because I'm the control freak, because I don't have you, and I need you to do what I want. That's why we're divorced. But I am manageable. And so I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm not going to be like just a bitch to be a bitch, okay?
Fair enough.
Fair.
But also,
so that way you can go, guys, here's how you do it in this scenario. So that way you can go, hey, here's how you use these tools for emotional regulation, and I'll show you in real time. That's how it works.
Just to be clear,
is that fair? I mean, it's, yeah.
I'll do the exercise with you, but to be clear, my specialty is not in how you deal with certain types of wives. It's how you deal with your own emotional reactions. That is the foundational point of it. So if getting back into,
Cool. So
I would
he's
have
cool,
suggestions. Huh?
Well, sure, that would be fine.
Yeah.
So even still, like let's say you did it, and the tools that you get to is like I can get you stoic in a tough situation, right? That's like your emotional regulation is solid, and you are now stoic in a tough situation. And I don't want to put you into a thing that's not your field, so that's fair if it's not. So like that's as far as I go. Is like I get them stoic.
And again, I've had plenty of conversations where I'll suggest things and say, "Have you tried this?" And and then yes, no, that worked, that didn't. But I'm also not diving headfirst into that part of it either. The main focus for me.
Okay, so that wouldn't be your field. I don't, like I said, I'm not trying to call you in a that's not your field. I'm not trying to put you in something that's not your thing.
Yeah, and fair enough.
If that's not your thing, like if you're like, no, emotional regulations, I help you with fight, flight, freeze, and fawn on your triggers and your mechanisms here and how to be able to regulate. So when people are being whatever,
right,
you don't end up becoming the person who follows or matches their energy. You can control your energy. Right?
And then create a worse situation for yourself and or others. Yeah. That's my wheelhouse.
Right. And so getting into acceptance and then going into catching your triggers and not having a trigger response, and like that, like that's my piece of the puzzle, guys. I'll get you that. And then you can go to the next piece of the puzzle. That would be with, this other guy or whatever, right?
Yeah, potentially. And obviously I'm always working
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to make sure.
No, and yes, that is my main focus. That is my solid wheelhouse. I feel good about my tools there, and yeah.
Then I won't do the example for like what do you do if you're like, my job is to get the first part done. Like I'm like, okay, then the second part wouldn't be helpful then because he's still not in his understanding what to do. So let's get him calm first. Right?
Yeah, and to be honest,
okay, then the scenario of like hold the line and
it's there's so much in that first part anyway that I realized I was trying to do more when I started, and actually given our last conversation, which is interesting, I didn't elaborate so much, but I was trying to do more back then, and I realized there's so much involved in just that chunk of what I'm trying to get to that it would benefit me to really dig into that and start there. So again, I'm a one-man operation. I don't have a team, so I'm just working one-on-one for now. The goal is to get bigger and do more mentoring for younger guys, as I said. But for right now, it's the emotional regulation hero training. That's my foundation.
But really cool. Yeah, that's. Have you studied any Marshall Rosenberg yet? Like, I want to give you another like a piece to your puzzle that would really be like, dude, that's fucking useful. Like, obviously, if we're both working with men, I want as many guys to help as many guys as possible. So there's no competition. I want you to be as successful as you can be. Have you studied Rosenberg yet? It's okay if you didn't. I'll give you a really cool recommendation, and anybody should have this. You got nonviolent communication? Yeah.
So
cool. Yeah, this is good because good. And so with this one, this would be like I saw you had because you got happened, experience, response, opportunity for hero.
Yeah.
But you got the observations, which is I can see this is happening. The feelings, how do you feel about it and what's going on? But then you missed like the needs part, and I'm telling you, that's the brakes on the conversation. Like whenever I have my guys go like, well, what do you need? And then they go into a want, you go like, that's not a need. No, the feelings wheel would probably be useful there. Like, what do you need here? What are you doing?
Sure.
Like you just came in hot. I don't have to respond to that. There's no request.
Well,
and then if you make a request, it doesn't mean that I have to do anything with it. That would be a demand. And then we need to make an agreement here. And without an agreement, it's your day.
Yeah, my thing would be like my version of that is in how do you want to feel? Because for me, at the foundation of every need and want is a desire to feel a certain way. I want to feel attended to. I want to feel loved. I want to feel like whatever emotion you have a desire for is the foundation of every human behavior, right? So we don't do things just to do them. Even if we're doing it altruistically, we're still doing it because it makes us feel good to do it, even if we're not getting some sort of concrete material result from that. So for my part, that's how I view it as I'm assuming, given how you asked it, it's your biggest.
Go ahead.
It's the like in that situation you were going to bring up, the ability to understand what you need and how to ask for it in that situation. Is that what you're bringing up?
It would only make sense because otherwise, if he's calm and stoic but doesn't know what he's trying to do, it's just going to be she's in control and it turns into chaos. And then he's got to do really bad men's group advice, and I'll call some out, of just weather the storm of her anger and her wrath while you become a statue that just gets its ass kicked by the weather. It's not a good feel. It's not a good thing, and it doesn't work.
I can agree with that. It
doesn't work.
Yeah, I can
just
agree
sitting
with that.
there and being a human punching bag is not a solid strategy.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And so if you're going to be like calm and stoic, you should also be able to lead the conversation into a place that goes, can we at least make some agreement here? Because I'm not going to join you in your madness, but I'm also not going to sit around here and just be a punching bag. You're not my person. So make a request, or else you're going to have to be stuck with it.
And what's interesting too is, again, from an experiential perspective, the guys that I have worked with, it's very clear to me, obviously, given your background, you have a lot of experience in a much more volatile space, and you've been able to take on guys in that same place because of that. I
have the wild ones. I have the wild extreme.
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between us. Certainly. Well, not the only one, but certainly a foundational one is,
it's one of them.
Yeah. I don't have that guy that I talked about in that situation is probably the most volatile client I've had, in the sense of, like, he has a partner who is not in his corner at all, has no interest, is just like, I want what I want and do this for me. The vast majority of other people that I've worked with,
hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. They do have caring relationships. They have a good, they just get lost in their own issues. They can't separate their emotion from their action. It's more of that. So that has been my experience. But I can certainly understand.
All right, let's go with, I want to stay in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
I operate in, like, the hell zone. When people we're fucked, that's where Rick gets in. Like, I take the ones where we're like, it's nutty. That's where I work, and I'm like, let's pull you guys out of hell. That's what I do. I go into the dark places and get people out of there.
Yeah.
So this is where, if we're going to keep it lighter, I'm okay with that. And so with this one, let's just say there's a couple, and I want to, just for your expertise, I'll keep you in there, a couple, and they're just miscommunicating. It's not a volatile, it's not evil, it's not malicious. It's like, we're just missing each other here.
Sure.
How do you help them? Is there one person who leads? Is it we both do it together? Like, what's the strategy to make it so the miscommunication with your style would be like, this is how we make sure you guys don't miss each other? Yeah,
the goal for me is always collaboration with, because I know you're big on that too. Like how do you leading is a factor. And for me, the version of that I would use is like, well, you need to take responsibility for your stuff and lead on your stuff. She can lead on her stuff because she knows it better, right? So you don't necessarily have to lead the conversation, because the conversation can be collaborative, but you need to lead with your, going what you said, with your needs, your emotions, your response, the things that are coming up for you in the situation. Once you move past the emotional reaction part, getting to regulation, and then being able and in the space to have a collaborative conversation. So anything from active listening, right? So not just getting your points, but legitimately hearing what she has to say, repeating it back to her so she feels heard about it. Okay, did I get that right? Is that what you're saying? No. Oh, okay. Well, please.
Do you use any tricks for that? Because you doing this trick, you need to have tools for this, because you've worked with enough women too that, like, they stack according to the connection to an emotion. Like, you do know how, like, women minds will stack because they'll have multiple things that are connected to, say, frustration. And then frustration will be, I'm upset because the dog peed on the floor, your mother calls too many times, the kids aren't getting picked up from school, and you didn't do this thing you said you would do. This is all frustration, so listen to what I'm saying. And he's like, for me, that's 4 different things, but for you, it's one argument. You're like, you do. Okay. You've seen this enough with couples, right? Where one will be stacking. You're familiar, right?
And I'm familiar with the process. I'm not aware of that it's called stacking.
So how do you help a guy when they have multiple things that are different, that are all in the same event or the same situation?
Right. So the goal there would be, acknowledging, and I equate a lot of this to like authoritative parenting, right? I acknowledge that you're having this emotion. The behavior you're exhibiting is not beneficial for these reasons, or is hurting me in some way, and I'm going to share that so you're aware of that. What are you actually trying to get from me? What are you trying to tell me? What do you need right now? I understand there's this other stuff that happened, and I get how that connects and makes it worse.
Good.
I have those too.
You did get to the what do you need? So you got that. The what do you need here? Like, so that's what I was.
What is it you're
like,
actually?
Okay, so if I'm
telling
being
me
calm,
all these things,
she's
what are you asking me? What do you need from me?
I think that's trickier than the what do you need. Yeah, the what do you need is far more specific because it does hit the brakes on the conversation. Because most of the time, whenever you do a what do you need here, the answer is I don't know. I'm just upset. In which case, what would be the best practice? Like with my guys, I go like, if she doesn't know what she needs, man, don't guess it. Go like, well, babe, write it out or figure out what you need, make a request, and then I got you covered. Like, but I'm not going to guess what you need if you don't know. How the hell am I supposed to know?
And I actually encourage that too. Like, if you hit I don't know, that's a perfectly valid answer, and you should get there because that's your starting point to figure it out. So don't try and come up with something just to come up with it.
Write it out.
Yeah, so
that's where I would say like the armor. That's what we call it with the emotional response is like use the correct armor for the situation. Like you don't have to take it to the face. Like you can block some of these attacks and go like, no, I'm not an asshole. I'm not a piece of shit. Stop trying to attack me with judgments. What is it that you need here? Because it's not to call me names to make you feel better. That's not helpful. You know,
sure.
And so if you want to control me with fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, it's a control system. I'm just not going to comply, but I can do so compassionately and understandingly. Like, I hear you. I just don't agree with you. What do you need so we can make something that does resemble an agreement that we're both like, that's beneficial for us? But
I get
making
that.
a demand definitely isn't going to.
Yeah, no.
And so that's where it's like most of these conversations, if I'm being emotionally regulated and I go, okay, cool, I can see you're upset. That's happening. I'm not going to get triggered by your trigger. I'm not even joining you on your crazy. So I'm going to let you stay where you are. I'm not coming with you. And then now I don't know what it is that you need, though. Do you know what you need? Because it's not go get the kid because you have an appointment. You need maybe better communication with us, better agreements, better scheduling. What do we need here? Because one of us now has to just completely compromise a meeting that we're both in. But one of us has to not do that because in this case, you weren't communicating well enough to know that I needed to. I would have rescheduled this. So how can we do this? What do you need? And she's like, I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. Like, but you dropped the ball on this one. I want to pick it back up, but I got to know what you need in here. Is it a different? Do we have to share a Google Calendar so that way I know what's going on with the kids? Like, what do you need?
Right. And then the only hesitation I have there is because if we're going with this example still and she's emotionally unregulated, trying to solve the problem is not going to work.
Sure.
So that I would stick with.
In which case, this guy's got nothing. So even if he's emotionally regulated, he can't do anything.
Yeah. So then it would be maintaining the boundary. So it's like, okay, well, if we can't resolve the current situation, then we have to delay this interaction. And if it's a matter of, then it just becomes.
What happens to the kid then?
Right. Well, then it just becomes.
Someone's got to get the kid though.
This is right. So then it comes down to this. Okay, I don't want to hear about anything. You know, what is happening with the child? The details of where do they need to be picked up? Why? What's happening? And why didn't I know about this beforehand? Like, actually, not even that. Like, that's after the fact. Let's go over the logistics of addressing the current situation. The most urgent issue first, when everyone's on point and safe, and we can have space for this, then we can get into the other stuff. But if you keep coming at me with this other stuff, and then it becomes, well, what is your decision as an individual? Are you going to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take it upon myself to take care of my kid, so I am going to. This has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. I am canceling my meeting because I am with someone who will understand. I am going to get my child. And then when you figure out, what you need or what you want to talk about, then we can revisit this. But until then, I don't want to hear it. So it's setting a boundary, going toward what's going to be best for you in the situation. Granted, that's a very different situation than someone in a committed, loving relationship who just is, missing each other, right?
Sure.
So I would approach that differently. But again, it's coming from his perspective of what is your experience with this relationship? What is your perception of what's happening? Because I can't make this decision for you. I don't know enough about your life. But given what's happening, how would you address this? And if I can see where I could plug in a tool for you, I'll do that. That's really more of what it is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a tricky scenario with those ones. It's tough to hold the line on those ones. So I'm with you. It's a tricky scenario with a person who has nothing to gain from being highly disruptive. But in this case, the tricky part is if you're like, I'll cancel my meeting and go get the kids, that probably also falls into an enabling thing that rewards them for terrible behavior, which is training people how to treat you.
And certainly,
so that does get a little tricky too.
Certainly, if that was a consistent thing. But if this was a single incident where you're taking the reins
at that point,
and then saying, hey, this is not happening again until we get some ground rules down, because I'm not doing that. If you come to me again and that happens, I am not canceling my meeting and you're going to have to deal with it. So again, setting a boundary and saying what I'm going to do if this behavior happens again.
Sure. Yeah, that makes more sense.
That's
cool.
true.
I was just curious on your system.
Yeah, but I will say, I'm a big fan of the authoritative parenting approach in general anyway, with conversation. It's just validating emotion, listening, active listening, and acknowledging the reality of the situation despite the emotion.
Cool. Hey, I was just curious your system to help some guys out there. I was like, okay, cool. So yeah, just finding hey, what do you need here? What's going on here? Cool. Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Well, yeah, we got 3 hours in here, man. I know. I do love hanging with you. And for those of you, anybody who's gotten this far, first off, legendary on your part. This is not a hostile dynamic, just so you guys know. This is a steel sharpens steel. Like to have these Chris and I outside of this. I really enjoy your conversations and very much appreciate you because it's good to hear. I do like your passion. I do like your concepts, and I like the way you handle things. So this is anybody's dude, these two fucking are going at it. It's no, we're not really going at it. We just don't agree on stuff. But I really appreciate that we don't agree on stuff. So I'm okay with that.
Well, and this is the nature of getting,
which is cool.
You got to get out of your echo chamber and have hard conversations. Otherwise, shit doesn't get better.
Yeah. Well, that's probably my favorite thing about you is that we just really don't agree with each other. It's probably my favorite thing. I'm thank you. I'm okay with that. Good. I do need to see any other thing. And so I highly value being able to have these conversations. I really do. And so like I said, you're my person who's the most plugged in with this algorithm. I'm not really in either of the extreme algorithms. So I just see behavior and I go, what are the behaviors they're doing? Because to me, as an indifferent, I do psychology, so I'm watching the behavior, and I'm this person's doing this crazy shit. That's a contradiction, and this person's doing this to control others through judgment. I'm isn't that just a hate group? That's curious, and these people are hurting themselves to get what they want. How did victimhood become a promotion? That's really weird. And then I'm just watching everybody just do really weird behavior and going, hey, does anybody know what they're doing that for? What's going on here? Is that a real thing? I don't know if it is. And so that's why it's kind of cool to be able to go I'm plugged into some stuff you might not be plugged into. And I'm what is it? I don't know. And so you know, even my guys couldn't explain half the shit.
Well, and that's the thing too, is we got so in depth on the abortion conversation that there was plenty more that we could have talked about from that perspective of plugging into other things. And it's ultimately, I think as we've said multiple times, the conversations need to continue to be had because, and I feel I more so than a lot of people in my circle have the spoons to do it because there is a lot of emotion about it. And I understand why it's there, rational or not. It's for a purpose. And I feel called to be able to take what I can from those experiences and communicate them. Here's what.
Gosh, I got a challenge for you then, because even still, this is two guys talking about women's rights, and so
Right.
isn't this by definition the contradiction to their entire argument, anyways?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it make sense, like if you have any women, wouldn't it make sense that like you would say like I got some women that are like they're pretty good at being able to articulate this stuff. I'd be open to having that conversation, or even having like 3 or 4 of us on the show and like I'd be okay with that, because I'm very open to hearing, but you have people that I don't have access to. There are not feminists trying to talk to me.
Yeah,
I think
I
I'm
know.
the definition of what they hate for being born.
Well, there's
Like
there's
it would be
certainly
sexist and racist because of the way I was born, right?
Wait,
I'm a
sorry, I didn't hear
cis
that last
white
part.
male in my 40s.
You would be
I'm
sexist
pretty
and
sure
racist.
I'm
is that
like
what
the
you're saying?
enemy for
Well,
just being like, what's this feminist opinion? Like, look, what's the feminist opinion?
yeah, honestly,
I'm the enemy by definition, right?
every woman I know that has an awareness of you, it's nothing about how you look. It's all about rhetoric and conversation and all of that. So I do appreciate the fact
if
that
you got any who would love to have the conversation, I'm okay.
well,
with
and
it.
I will certainly reach out and see if anyone's willing.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like again, I think that people misunderstand something with the way that I challenge. Is I don't challenge to be right. I challenge to understand. And like, because people don't like to be asked why, because other people use it as a weapon, I don't think they understand that challenge can also be for construction. It's just more complicated. Construction's harder than demolition.
For sure. Absolutely.
And so when people go, well, why do you do that? They would assume this is demolition and not construction. And that's why people assume instead of ask to understand. Like Carl Jung says, thinking is difficult. That's why people judge.
Yeah. Well, and I think we talked about this last time, actually, where it's in the beginning of our conversation, I was a little defensive and I realized it, and we talked about it. And it was that because the programmed trigger, oftentimes, I certainly experienced this in my youth, growing up in the family that I did. You didn't say anything unless you were challenging someone. There was no like, hey, let's just have a constructive conversation. It's no, we're going to yell and scream at each other because we've reached a breaking point. So I grew up in an Irish Catholic family in Boston. Like, you didn't talk about anything unless it was absolutely necessary. So if someone was coming to you with something, it was a confrontation because of a big issue. It wasn't just, hey, let's hash this out, So that automatically exists with so many people that I grew up with. So when they're challenged, they're just like, oh, fuck you. And I was like, well, no. I'm just asking a question. It's like, no, you're doing this. Well, no, I'm legitimately not. I want to know. So it's weird to have that be true.
They need emotional regulation.
Yes, they
need
do.
the emotional regulation. They need training.
I know plenty of people that need it, and I just hope I can help.
Yeah, I love it.
And I need it. That's why I'm doing it.
That's awesome,
I'm doing it because I want to help other people, because the more I help other people, the better I get at it myself. That's my favorite part about it.
Well, if you ever need your tools sharpened, I'm always here for you, man.
And I appreciate that. And I
you
appreciate
someone
you.
Who challenge me. I'm like, I got you.
Yeah, I know you'd be chomping at the bit for that. I know. And I do appreciate you inviting me back on to have that conversation.
I do it really, and this is something where I do hope that people can listen to this element, because like I don't do it to be right. I'm not right. It's just about being able to go, like, can we really talk about some of these things and use our emotional regulation? Because I wasn't triggered ever. Like, I didn't go, like, fuck you, Chris, you fucking idiot. Like, it never got there. It's not my thing. It used to be my thing, but of course, like, I got to hang out a week with Dwayne Knoll at his house, and he was like, dude, I would have punched you in the face already for that. Like, just because we weren't healthy has shown us the path to become healthy. And so I think being able to show, like, hey, we can go from these tough environments to be able to go, like, we just don't agree. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that's okay. And if we can show even on these small scales, like, not agreeing is fine. You know that, right? Let's put that option back on the table, that it's not, if you don't do it my way, you should be canceled, killed, die, or I hate you. Because that's obviously like, I'm going to attack you for peace, which is funny how peace becomes the justification for hatred and evil and harm. That's really funny. So, like, I'm justified by peace to hurt you. That's like, fighting for peace is like screwing for virginity. That's George Carlin. He's like, that doesn't make any sense. It
I
doesn't
love
work
George
like
Carlin.
that. But then
Yeah.
you got this other side, and then the other side is just this radical, like, fucking shoot them. And you're like, no, don't fucking shoot everybody. Let's have a conversation here. Like,
And
there's got to be a place where we bring back discord.
Yeah, for sure. And I think actually, and this would be a good kind of sentiment to end on. Then this would be a totally separate conversation if it comes, and what we didn't get to, as I mentioned, but the other big thing.
Let's never talk about abortion again,
ever. The other big thing that came up with, as you asked, like, why are people so upset? And the abortion thing was only a part of that. The other aspect is everyone saying, well, why is we just have a difference of opinion. And the sentiment that I got from a lot of the people that I have in my community is when there's going to be legislation to further dehumanize certain marginalized groups, that's not a difference of opinion. That is, some people either willingly or unwillingly are okay with taking other people's rights away or humanity or looking at them.
That's where, like, I very much agree. When people are doing legislation to take away base human rights like free speech and things like this, base level rights, I'm very much with you. And I'm with you on which legislation is trying to make it so you can't live. I'm with you. Like, it doesn't matter left or right. I don't think people are trying to make it so my families can't be safe. Like, nobody wants that. And so this is where it would have to be like, you guys, like, this is the one law that can't be. Like, for example, like, if you say these words, you go to jail. I'm like, that's getting rid of the First Amendment. That would
I would agree.
That's a slippery slope that no country has recovered from. But I'm going to cancel you, or you should be removed from speaking because I don't like what your rhetoric is.
I lost you. You're frozen.
It's not just the hate speech thing has gotten very interesting on what's allowed and what's not allowed. And these are the parts where it's like, if we're making laws to say you go to jail for saying a word I don't like, well, that's not good. I think the internet's getting weird. They're listening to us because you froze. On that note, all right, Chris just dropped. I'm sure he'll be jumping back in a second. For any of you legends who have made it this far into the conversation, this is pretty fun. I enjoy this, and I hope that you guys, if you got any anxiety on this, take a deep breath. We're totally cool. We're not fighting, we're not angry, we're not mad, and I like them a lot. I really appreciate the conversations. So if you're like, these two are going at it, maybe a little, but it's kind of okay because this is my dude. And I'll text him after this and tell him I liked it. So I'm hoping he jumps back in here so that way we can hang out more. But this is an interesting conversation, guys. It is. And if you guys analyze this without judgment and without ridicule, without hatred, and without blame, shame, or trying to create some justification for judgment, you probably realize, man, there's some merits and benefits to both sides. So there's good intentions on both sides. And what's the best thing for your pack or best thing for your people should be a very healthy question to ask.
Let me just
it's not crazy to go, well, that doesn't work for me. What works for you? And that doesn't work for me. This works for me. All right, cool. Well, this is what I think. Like, all right, we both are here. Is there a way we can make this safe and better for both of us without it getting radicalized into hatred? Because I'm with him as far as emotional regulation goes. As soon as you get triggered, you're not right. And I hope you catch that part. As soon as you're triggered, you have fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, and you need to react to control another person. As soon as you're doing this, please don't put yourself in the hero crew. Please don't put you in the cure. You became the curse. You became the problem. Anybody who's trying to control others is going to be the one who's killing the love element of what people are supposed to do for connection. And if that's the case, don't put yourself as the good guy when you're doing bad guy stuff. Anti-heroes are not the same. All right, looks like his internet's wrapped up. It's gone. I don't see it coming back. Yeah, it looks like it's froze on his end. He's trying to jump in, guys, but I'm trying to Rick rant for you guys to monologue a little bit. So, in any case, Chris O'Neill, it's goofing up. I want him back on. And if you guys want back on, send some messages and comments that you're like, this is cool, let's do more. And then topics for us to go over would be really good. He's jumping back in. Good. Come on, internet lords. Put this thing back together. They're like, you guys are making too much sense. We got to freeze you guys. Okay, good. Yes, we're back. I did a little Rick rant while you were gone to just kind of be like, everybody be cool because, it's cool.
Yeah, and I don't know if any of that got recorded on my end because I was saying some stuff too. So, but anyway, we're rounding it out and finishing up anyway. I do have to take off. I got to get my kids going to dinner and everything. So I forget where we were.
Me too.
But we were resolving things anyway. And
I think we were right at, you're awesome, dude. Hey, you're awesome, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I love this. This is great. Let's do it again. I think that's where we were at.
All right, cool.
That's fun. I appreciate you very much, man. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks again. I appreciate you for doing this. I really do.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you inviting me back. Thank you.
So let's do some more. And send me some topics on stuff because I don't agree on half of them. So send me stuff that I'm not supposed to agree on because that makes us go like, what are we talking about again? And I really do value it. I think we need more people to have the courageous ability to go.
And I had like 4 other topics that I had on my list. Just didn't get there. So yeah.
Bro, we'll just schedule another one soon then. I want to get through your list. Let's do it.
All right. All right. Sounds good.
I'll be in touch. I value and want to hear your list. So let's make another appointment and never talk about abortion again. It's not even our topic.
Yes. All right. Fair enough. I'm with you.
We're two dudes making laws for women. I thought that's what we're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
All right. So
we did it. We said we did it. We can say we did it. We're good.
We fixed it, ladies. We got you. All right. So in any case, it's good to see you, brother. I'll talk to you again later and we'll hang out more. I'll see you later. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks. See ya.
Bye. Click on the button and you can become the hero in your own story. It's time to start making the choices to change. And the evolution that you're going to do begins with choosing the next step. This is the way. And together, we're always stronger.